It is now 6:33 and I'm going to call this meeting to order. And the roll call, Mayor Pro Tem Villalobos. Here. Council Member Bunker.
Here.
Council Member Shell Allen.
Here.
Council Member McLeod.
Here.
Council Member Clinton.
Here.
And Mayor Glaze, I'm here. Okay, and if we'll stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I take it we don't have any public comments. Did any come in that email or anything? Okay. So our first report is me. I did want to mention a little bit of something about the fire department. They have made, just for your information, it's nothing to do with the city. They've made an agreement with Texas State Tubes and with Don's Fish Camp. And they're getting paid for $4,500 from each business for 48 days to provide 4 firemen to be on location. And they answered 21 calls this weekend with what they called 3 drownings. They didn't drown and die. They went under the water. And one young woman would have died had they not been there. She was drunk and she took on a lot of water, apparently. So most of them were just lacerations and stuff like that. But it was pretty interesting to go down there. I've never been to Don's Fish Camp and just see the whole operation. So just wanted to let you know that they were doing that that's part of their new service to the community. Okay,
Oh,
so
I had a question too, because I saw on Facebook that the volunteer fire department got a grant or some funding for a good vehicle for them to access the river and
yes,
for that case of saving people that might be in the river. It's like,
So they can get into the water.
yeah, it's like an all-terrain vehicle that puts them right up on the shore.
yes, and it's got a big bed. It can fit either 2 patients or a patient and an attendant. It's got a big flatbed to it.
Oh,
It's really a pretty neat vehicle. They're real
so
happy
they
about
already
it.
got it, don't they?
Yeah, they've already
Wow.
gotten it.
So each business is contributing $4,500, Don's Fish Camp and
Mhm.
Texas Tube.
They have also an ambulance on site at Don's Fish Camp. I don't know about Texas State Tubes because I was on the Don's Fish Camp side. And then they have the constable there and they get 47,000 because he's hiring.
4,700.
No, 47,000 because they are hiring officers to work the area and keep,
Law and order.
law and order.
Mhm.
Yes.
Mm.
So that's really helpful to the community too. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the parade that we talked about last time. I've been working on that. I would like to have the parade line up down Northwest River Road. So that means I would have to have them come in on, I keep saying Skull, on Quail Run. They'll have to exit Highway 80 on Quail Run and then come back around because there really isn't going to be any place to turn around. So this is the biggest flaw with my plan. But I also have secured permission to use the field of the Holy Ground Church. And that's a pretty big field there
For people to park.
for people to park or to stage extra parade participants in there. And we can put
Okay.
them in a U shape so that we'll put them down the road, clear down to the corner to Cody G's. And then we'll start putting them in like that. The guy who does our tree cutting, he's right on the
Oh,
corner
okay,
by the
okay.
shoe tree
Right,
and
right,
everything.
right.
Um,
That's gonna be okay with traffic?
well, that's,
You have to divert traffic somehow.
yeah, that's what I've been kind of working with, but it's like 2 hours. My main thing is, the parade people coming and getting in line, first come, first serve. So I had
Do we have
written out
detour
this,
signs? Maybe we
we've
can-
got a lot to work with.
Yeah.
So we've still got Jane Latham's lot to use up here by the post office. And we can park people, we'll get some parking attendant volunteers, and we can park them up there. So what I want to do is, I had formed a committee with all of the business people in town. Carlton couldn't come, but he was invited. And Taylor and Katie and Craig and Wendy, and we got together and talked and stuff about it. And Jane Latham has come down a couple of times. And so what I want to do is go from the corner there down Main Street, turn left onto Gonzales, turn left onto Crockett, take Crockett clear back out to Lockhart, and then turn right onto Bowie, take Bowie around to Gonzales and come back down Main Street again. So I think it'll be fun. Everybody's so excited that
Yeah,
there's going to be a parade. So
good.
I've talked to the churches,
Thank you.
to Three Rivers. We're gonna put the children under the trees there, and they will, be staged at the front behind the lead vehicle just before the parade starts, the ones that are on bicycles and stuff.
Right.
And, I talked to Angela and Armanda, and they will be ready to receive the children. So as the parade route turns left, the children will peel off into their yard.
Mhm.
And Armando said he'd even get them some bottles of water. Oh, I think I have.
Okay, I think those might just be extras.
That's
Yeah,
what-
you can put them there.
Get one from
Oh, Catherine, I did email Bobby Hall about that this afternoon, about if we could use his property. So
For the parade.
right next to the.
It's rental property, so, when you go by the old school, there's 2 homes. And they use that one home for filming, Grateful Dead or something a few years back. And then the next is H&R or H&G rental property. So that very first house way back is a rental piece of property. And they've got a huge dog, and I was too scared to go and try and talk to him. And so Mike said he knew him and he would go and ask
Oh.
for permission. So his is the very first piece of ground there. The biggest part of it is the church. So they're good. So I wrote, did this get in the packet that I had written out about the parade?
No.
I don't know. Okay, I'll have to copy it and I can give it to you.
It's on the screen.
And also, Carlton said we can use his property over here for food booths, and then I'll get together with Sylvia in the next day or two to find out how many booths we can put over there. Well, not just food booths, but if it's jewelry or whatever.
Arts and crafts.
Arts and crafts.
Are we gonna require permits?
No. I don't
Probably
think
too-
No,
Too
but
late
they will
right
be,
We only have 30 days.
well, no, because I do have permits for
They're
those.
like $25, aren't they?
Right.
No, they're like $15.
15. And I thought that
There's
was like
it's like
for, to pay for.
$10
Carlton's.
without electricity, $15 with.
Yeah, so it's Carlton's expenses.
So if they call, I guess we can tell them that.
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions? I'm working on volunteers.
How about additional porta potties?
Oh, Jared ordered 2 porta potties for over here.
Yeah,
and
well,
a trash can.
we contacted TDS and we'll be coordinating with them.
Okay.
Probably on the order of $200. Last time for two additional trash cans and 2 porta potties was $150. Probably going to be close to that this time.
So if anybody wants to volunteer and help, just come down to City Hall or email.
If they could, I've got my number on here and they
Just
can
call
call
you.
me. Yeah.
Are you gonna put anything? Put anything? Bill?
Yeah,
With
I was working
You're
with
working on that.
Adrian,
Okay, good.
and he was gonna put it on the website.
Good.
He ran out of time today because we were busy with this stuff.
Yeah.
So,
There's plenty of time to get all that done.
Would the porta potties and the trash cans, could that be paid for? I know we're gonna talk about that out of the hotel tax money, tourism type thing.
I don't think so,
No.
because we're not encouraging anybody to stay overnight.
Oh, okay,
It's just a 2-hour event,
I see, okay. We'll
pretty
talk more
impromptu.
about that.
Prompt to actually. Just kind of, let's have a parade.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now we're going on to the important stuff, to Jared.
All right, let me pull my administrator's report up. Good evening, City Council.
Good evening, City Manager.
All right. So the first thing I want to update you on is the Coronavirus Relief Fund. So this has been a grant that we've been working on, been receiving funds from for almost a year now. The city of Martindale was initially eligible for about $69,500 for Coronavirus Relief Fund expense reimbursement related to our response to the coronavirus. Initially, we identified just less than $14,000 of expenses that we believe met the requirements related to the audiovisual equipment for conducting remote meetings, increased cleanings and the rest from City Hall and other protective equipment and measures. In the last few months, we received additional guidance that we could expense for the full amount of $69,500. So we submitted an additional almost $56,000 of eligible expenses based on updated guidance. That funding was received about 2 weeks ago. So
Updated guidance.
yeah, so the question was updated guidance. When we initially read the requirements, it was pretty prescriptive of what would be allowable costs. After we submitted our initial cost estimates and requests for reimbursement, the program managers for the fund at the state level said, hey, why are you not taking up to your full allotted amount? And we replied that based on the guidance that, as we understood it, this was the only thing that would be eligible for.
It's about 20,000 total.
Yeah, and so we went back and submitted additional costs, mainly, not exclusively, but mainly law enforcement personnel expenses. We initially thought it had to be just overhead or overtime and additional overhead that might have been caused by coronavirus.
Right.
The guidance we received was, don't take that too literal. If you have law enforcement expenses, they're eligible. So with that, we have received an additional $55,000 in grant funds that offset expenses in the general fund. What that does, in essence, is it's an additional income line that could be transferred to our general fund, which opens it up for other uses. And at that point, we don't have a lot of, opens up funding in our budget really for other uses. And so things that I think we should consider in a future meeting are capital investments, taking that $55,000 and having that cover the projected shortage on our Lockhart Street improvement. I think that's a very logical place to put it. The police vehicle, we initially were going to go with a 5-year lease purchase option. Instead of doing that, we could go out and purchase it outright without going through any financing. It also could be a very useful option. And then we have lift station improvements, Crockett lift station, the $22,000 to fix the elbow pipes, other backlog maintenance. Park facilities, if we want to put in some park facilities that we identify in our strategic plan or other things, we could use it on parks. We could even use it on other options, I think, to consider. Hiring consultants or to complete a comprehensive master plan. Develop a capital improvement plan with the assistance of a financial advisor who's well-versed in financing opportunities and bond issuances and the rest, to look at how we can maximize our ability to fix more roads, and also maybe signage and landscaping for community beautification. Yeah.
So we'll probably figure all that out during our budget workshop.
Yeah, this could be the budget workshop's going to be focused on FY21. There's no requirement that we spend it this fiscal year, but if we wanted to, we could, through a simple action by city council. And so I'm not coming to you with any particular recommendation. I just want you to put the bug in your ear that there's $55,000 that
We got it. We got the money.
we got the money.
Yeah.
Good
It's
job.
money in the bank. So
Good job.
All right, so but that adds up to $60 more than of what we were eligible for.
it was
His numbers aren't exactly right. It's
Oh,
like
okay.
I'm rounding.
69,575, I think was the real number.
Yeah.
And that 13,9 is actually 20% of the 69.
55, 50.
And yeah,
It's close.
Yeah.
There's
Right.
within hundreds of dollars there.
This is just rounding.
Yeah.
That's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
So,
Spend it.
so we'll be, likely what we'll do is we'll wait and see how the RFPs come back for the Lockhart roads, look where we're at with that process, and make a recommendation at that point.
Signage, we could do a welcome to Martindale sign.
We could do this is one of those things where it's additional money that
Gotcha.
doesn't have any strings attached.
Well, and Lockhart Street's become more complicated. We'll talk about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, okay.
All right, going on to the next grant funding is the American Recovery Plan Act, ARPA. This is the Biden stimulus. In the act, and this is something I've kind of teed up for council before. It can be used for one of four things: respond to public health emergency or the negative economic impacts of COVID, including assistance to households, small business, nonprofits, or direct aid to impacted industries such as tourism, travel, hospitality. So basically, transfer those funds to people who might need it in the community based on the impacts of COVID. The next one is respond to workers performing essential duties during COVID, public health emergency, premium paid eligible workers. This is mainly for health and first responders, medical and first responders. Another option is covers the provision of government services to the extent that of the reduction in revenue due to COVID-19 had relative impact to revenues collected. So basically, you can use this funding for anything you want as a government service that if you experienced a reduction in revenue during COVID-19. And it has the guidance put out by Treasury Department has some math that we have to follow to determine that. But as we have seen in our sales tax was better this year than it was last year and the year before. Our property taxes were not directly impacted. It doesn't appear that they were, based on some of the initial information I received from the CAD office, doesn't look like they would significantly impact our property taxes next year. I don't think there would be a lot of room to use option C based on that. So it also leaves us with the fourth option: make necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure.
That's a good one there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The bottom of that slide has a timeline. This was produced by a consulting service that sends out business solicitation information, but I thought it was a good, so I copied it and plagiarized it and put it on the slide. This lays out the timeline. So the money that we'll receive from this will come in two batches, one sometime in the next week or two for the first half, and the second half a year later. And then we have until December of 2024 the end of calendar year 24 to obligate those funds, put those funds on contract. And those contract expenditures have to be incurred by December 2026. So
How much is it?
that's great question. Next page. So how much is it? So the initial estimate that we received was just shy of $270,000. Based on some of the data, the different data sources that Treasury Department's using, that possibly could come up to $305,000. So I consider that in a range somewhere in there. We'll probably get some more clarification in the next weeks or so, couple weeks. The recommendation I would have is, of those four things, consider focusing on responding to negative economic impacts, including assistance to households, small business, nonprofits, aid to industries, or to make necessary investments in water, sewer, broadband infrastructure. We're looking at a wastewater maintenance backlog of about $40,000 currently. That could be more if we wanted it to be. $40,000 probably a starting point. Or we could use it on water investments, water infrastructure. As some of you may know, the Martindale Water Supply Corporation has some aging pipes, including ones that have asbestos in them in downtown. So that they get regularly monitored for health impacts of that, but it's something that we definitely want to remediate in the future. And talking with their general manager, that's probably on the order of $500,000 to $1.5 million or something like that. So it's quite an expensive thing. What I would suggest is we look at consolidating or having some other agreement with the Martindale Water Supply Corporation if we are going to invest in water infrastructure. The thought there is, and this has been kind of kicked about in the past, if the city is able to consolidate or share costs with the Water Supply Corporation, we could reduce some of the overhead expenses that are related to billing clerks, engineers, operators, wastewater and water operators, and the rest. If we consider a full consolidation of the water department, wastewater supply corporation, we could potentially save costs $400,000 or more, a significant number. Now, that water supply corporation is managed by its own board, has its own general manager. It's going to be a very politically sensitive item to consider. I've already started conversations with Texas Water Development Board, TCEQ, and the Public Utility Commission on what it would take to pursue this. And so far, it would be pretty straightforward and from a state level, not too controversial and pretty easy. The biggest hurdle in this is going to be, bringing on the water supply corporation, and they'd have to vote. The members of that water supply corporation would have to vote to dissolve if there was some sort of full consolidation merger of the water supply corporation into the city. That would achieve that level of savings, so that $400,000.
Merge with the Martindale Co-op?
Good.
So basically, the Martindale Water Supply Corporation, if there was an opportunity to consolidate them as into the city and have a public utility department managed by a person who is a water and wastewater operator, we save the costs of having a separate wastewater operator contract, and we would likely be able to remove the duplication of overhead for legal, engineering, and billing clerks. And so we could save, over the course of 10 years, you could save, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Considering that they're looking at very high costs for asbestos abatement for the piping, that savings combined with the ARPA amounts could achieve a significant portion of
So we're
making that.
merging the wastewater and the water company?
Merging
With management system.
basically they would become if this were to go forward and they voted to do this and it made sense for everybody involved,
Right.
This would be the Water Supply Corporation dissolving, the city of Martindale assuming all of their infrastructure, debts, personnel, all their expenses. And they become part of the city staff, city infrastructure. It would have huge benefits to this, to the residents of Martindale and those in the outlying communities regarding development agreements. The biggest benefit, not only in saving customers, individual customers, potentially hundreds of dollars a year, is our ability to negotiate development agreements for those land developers in our ETJ and elsewhere. That way we don't have a scenario in which they can just go out and build what they want. They would, in order to do so, they'd have to be able to get a well service or some other thing, but they would fall within the jurisdiction, the water distribution jurisdiction that the wastewater supply, the Martindale Water Supply Corporation currently has, which extends beyond the city's boundary, which would be extremely valuable in those.
Is there any way you can get the board could be involved?
So I've been working with Steve just on let him know what I'm doing when I'm hunting, pecking around, and we have a good working relationship. They had a meeting, the Water Supply Corporation Board had a meeting in early May. And I participated because the general manager there, Steve Ponville, was giving them an update, letting his board know that, hey, I had a meeting with representatives from the Texas TCEQ with the city, and this is what we discussed. And I went there and said, hey, board, we're just thinking about it at this point, trying to find if this is a good idea or not. Back in the napkin says it probably is, but we're not making any moves to do anything about it yet.
Right, okay.
So
So this is just in the works.
in the works, it's something to consider. I mean, we don't have, going back to our timeline, we have a lot of time to figure out what we want to spend this money on. Something like a consolidation agreement with the Water Supply Corporation would be a year-long endeavor, and it would have to have the political backing of their membership. And I think it makes a lot of sense, but it's something that as city council, as you have, y'all are members of the Water Supply Corporation. You know, talk to your fellow members, let them know, hey, that we could save a whole bunch of money, reduce our rates potentially for everybody. You know, you could have, you know, you always have the internet, phone, TV, triple play packages. You could have a triple play package for City of Martindale and save a bunch of money on your utility costs.
Could the board be like, to keep them in the loop, or to for political purposes, make them part of an advisory board or something?
Yeah, I think what if we pursued it, that board has been in existence for 60 years now. They have a political interest to maintain control, and there's most of their customer base is not necessarily within city limits. And so they would want to have some sort of representation, and the city could consider having a public utilities advisory board or something like that to give those people a voice and input in the, you know, decision-making process.
Yeah, we gotta look over pros and cons and unintended consequences.
Now, I think Steve has some experiences does he have experience in wastewater?
He does. He does not currently have a license or a certificate, but he previously has one.
Be a little,
Good.
a little bit of this, you know, if we could,
Okay.
they could expand their operations. It's a good approach. I agree.
Hey, Jared, I have a question.
Yes.
Listening in to the water board's meeting last month when you were there, I was wanting to be there in person. What my takeaway was that there was a consideration of combining billing, not the full dissolving. Was that the water board's way of just softballing a little bit, kind of opening the door?
We are looking at the conversation I'm having with their general manager includes all of the above. So yes, we have, the conversation has been just how do we consolidate billing? I think as a minor step, but where I see the biggest benefit is a full consolidation. And so, they have their own political considerations, and I think some of the discussion you heard reflected that.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that I did not miss something on one side or the other. I understand. Thank you.
Yes. All right, so we'll rediscuss this ARPA use in the future. Well, one thing that we'll want to get clarity on more quickly than others is the Lockhart Street costs and how we want to resolve the piping issues that we have at Crockett Lift Station with the elbow pipe. And so those are going to be some immediate areas where we'll be talking about the use of these funds, and the rest we'll likely deliberate on later. Other news and notes. Well, let me see. I have a pretty set agenda. I'll keep on the agenda for today, and I'll have additional updates on the rest of the committee. Back to you, Mayor.
So
Or
we're on
the
June.
judge. I don't know if Judge Fusco's on.
No.
Oh, were you gonna talk about the hotel, or is that,
That's later.
that's on the agenda? Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Court.
I didn't see him on there. Did you see him on there?
No,
He
you did.
said that he was gonna be ready to do a report.
He did not send a report.
He
Yeah.
didn't say he was.
No, I didn't receive. Not see one.
Okay, so next month, or next meeting. Okay, so the next item is police report.
While we're on the court report, I would like to ask our attorney if they've done any cases.
Yeah, we had 40 on the docket, 20 showed up. We got all of them resolved. 20 didn't show up, and they had failure to appear, notification sent, and they will be told that they need to appear next time.
Was that done all in one day, or did it take
All one
multiple
day.
days? All in one day.
All one day.
What are mostly speeding tickets? and
Yeah,
not
mostly
allowed that.
speeding tickets.
Efficient. That was very good.
Thank you.
Good question. Thank you. Okay, police report.
Okay, y'all have it there in front of you. So if you have questions, and you will see the red instead of the black, and the dates that coordinate with it. That's the sheriff's department coming out and helping me, because we had the perfect storm of the two of us that worked the most hours were both down with COVID at the same time. Officer Dugan's was out and I was out. And the most ironic one is on the 31st, we had a wonderful large group of people at City Park, and somebody called because everybody had mountain bikes, and he thought they were going to come down on bicycles and tear the park up, but they all went and rode together.
Street.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry on your printout that it didn't print red.
That's all right. So,
Hey, we get much damage, ruts and stuff in phase one park with all the rain. I saw some vehicles down there.
We've got ruts, and I've been up there, I'll tape it off. The mayor talked to me one day about, hey, maybe it's a good idea to go down there and tape it off. We taped it off, my tape disappeared. We tape it off again, the tape disappears. We have a chain somewhere where we had chained it up before when we closed the parks down for COVID, but I don't know where our chain's at.
Go get another one.
yeah.
Okay,
How about, can we talk about that little discussion? I mean, we got those limestone blocks we could put another set of blocks at the front of the road and put a chain across it. And then we have conditions that they can't drive, we'll lock it up. That way he didn't have to go rig something up, he can just put a chain.
And that's phase one.
Phase one is really, really bad.
Yeah, people, so,
It's getting torn up. I had to put it in 4-wheel drive and I still bottomed out in one of the mud holes.
And people are continuing, today, they had people parking almost, so the road that goes back to the private property back there, and then you turn left to phase one, you had people parking on that gravel road, walking down there to fish.
Oh, dear.
what do you think there, Sam, about that? I mean, we have those limestone blocks, you can put those eye hooks in there. Put those blocks across that road and then put a chain across it when it's too wet. And,
Well, are we talking the deepest
Let's-
ruts are in the circle?
We-
as
we
that
m-
Circle comes back around by that big pecan tree where there's
Well,
like a low spot there?
Those are running up really bad, but then everybody's starting to avoid
Off the side.
those and tearing up,
Yeah, we
they're
know.
starting to go around the ruts into the grass, which is also starting to show some wear and tear down there. Cause I know that day I went down there, Jared went down there to check it out, and it was everything he could do to get out with his pickup truck and 4-wheel drive. And I wouldn't drive down there in the patrol car, I stayed up high.
And then plus you got some kid in a 4-wheel drive that wants to spin them up. That's what kids do. But I think, I'm talking about when you first pull in, where Harry had put a temporary blockade before, and maybe just put a couple of blocks and then put a chain across, and then we'll lock it up when the weather is rainy.
It just depends though where people are gonna, oh, you're just saying just when it's
I
wet?
guess when it's wet, I mean, it's not pat till it dries out.
We need to do some grading on that road though, and that low spot.
Okay, but I'm
and
saying,
grading.
we should, what do you think? I mean, we should do that. I think as soon as, especially getting some rainy weather, because they'll rip it up.
I'll go down there and see it tomorrow.
Okay. That's your department. All
Thank
right.
you.
I want to get in your territory, buddy.
I'll go down there and look
All right.
tomorrow.
Okay.
Ms. Jen,
Okay.
you have any
Any other questions?
So the 510 was the shooting at Northwest River Road at the Skull
Yes, sir.
parking lot. What are your thoughts on putting a street light at the Skull? We talked about that because we're not sure who owns that parking lot, but
I'd
Safety-wise.
absolutely love to have that place lit up
Right.
like a Walmart parking lot. I just don't know how, I mean, that's y'all's department as far as cost and all of that, because I know sometimes it can get expensive. But if we had that place lit up, it would be fantastic. I agree with
Yeah,
it
we have to
100%.
decide whose property it is.
It does not belong to the city of Martindale.
yeah.
So that would be like putting light on somebody's property.
Does it belong to Mr. Conrad?
Yes.
Yes.
It does.
And
Long
he's,
time
does
ago.
he, is there some other post that we could light it from that's on the highway? Some
If it's-
kind of electrical post?
If it's city property, because the Caldwell County Tax Appraisal Office, it was listed as a 0. So they're clearing up like the zeros, and that does belong to Conrad. We can't, like the city of Martindale cannot put a light there.
Yeah, that's recently been updated on their CAD site, that it now reflects he's the property owner.
Well, I was thinking across the street from it, somewhere on Northwest River Road, aren't there already light posts? That we
There is
could
a
just put
light at
A,
the,
a light on it, street light.
there is one street light. It's at the end of Quail Run. On the one, like, there's a Y, so there's
Oh.
one street light where the school children catch the bus. On that first Y. It's on the second part over here that's really dark,
Yeah.
and there's no lights.
Mm.
So you're talking about putting a pole on the east side of Northwest River Road
Right.
across from the parking, kind of have them like
Yes.
pointed.
Have it
to the
pointed
point.
in that, to light that whole area.
The cost of the transformer to have a street light is $1,200, and then a pole would probably be about the same amount. If we could get easement from the Conrad property to put the light there, that would save some cost because there are 2 telephone poles there. And already in the parking lot, and all we'd have to do is get the transformer for $1,200.
So is the power pole on his property?
I assume so,
Would
yes.
that Blue Bonnet have an easement?
It seems the power poles go.
That'd be an
along there.
easement, the
It's just gonna
utility easement.
take some,
We're,
Uh-huh.
we're,
I
we need
think
to be
we're
careful.
getting way off
We're
topic.
getting way off
Okay,
topic.
okay, let's go.
So it's
Yeah,
like,
let's get
yeah.
back on
Let's get
track.
back to Harry here.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
All right,
thank,
sorry
thank,
about
thank
that.
you.
That should be added to the agenda though.
That's an important issue, but you're right.
Any other questions on the blotter?
No.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna move on to boards and commissions reports. And I don't see Craig. Do you have anything? Yes?
With Craig this afternoon, and he requested that his report be opportunity at our next meeting on the 15th.
Okay.
He was, typically we don't do reports on that second meeting. However, he was not available tonight, so he said he would have one at-
The next one.
At the next meeting.
yes, ma'am.
And right now, we don't have one for the parks.
I'll say something about the parks. I had been trying to get 2 bids. I don't know if,
Bids are on the
That's gonna
agenda
be
later.
in the agenda.
oh, about the park.
It's on,
Yes.
yeah. it's on
Okay,
the
then, the only other thing I'll say is that a big hackberry tree has fallen down in Allen Bates Park on the right side by the picnic, by the bench. It moved the bench over, so we'll have to speak about that later in the park discussion.
agenda. Yeah. Okay, and planning and zoning?
Yeah, basically, Lanzona, the development we had in the executive session, they're just ongoing discussions. Really nothing to update. We had a discussion about a potential industrial park in RETJ off of 621. It's just ongoing discussions at this point to bring up the fence. Mr. Irwin's place, I did talk to the man. He did have letters from his neighbors saying they don't have a problem with the fence. They would like to have a fence. I did ask for him to attach a updated floodplain map, which he did, as far as he did not do. That would be really my main concern in the floodway.
There's a fence down one side. Did he already do that?
That's his, I believe that's his neighbors.
That's his neighbor.
But that's something that was my issue with that permit. So Sylvia, so because I did request, he said he didn't have one, but I did request that he attaches the updated floodplain map to his permit or a variance.
I haven't received anything
Okay.
from him.
Okay. That's it for me.
And Martindale, San Marcos River Board is Joy.
I don't see her on. No.
Okay. Okay, we'll go on to consent items there's 2 sets of minutes in the packet. One is for January 27, 2020 for a workshop that was conducted. And the other one is for May 11, 21 minutes.
And the accounts payable. Oh, we're not gonna do that
We,
today.
we don't have them.
Oh, okay. I make a motion,
Okay.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes for May 11th to 2021 and January 2020.
A second.
Did you get that, Sonia?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Jan motioned and Sonia second,
Yeah.
Villalobos.
All right, we have a motion to accept the minutes as printed.
Those in favor?
I thought he was gonna say something. And we have a second, so Sam, are you in favor?
Yes, aye.
Mike,
Yes.
Lisa,
No,
was that yes or no?
no,
No.
No, okay.
You want
Want to discuss?
Thank you.
Okay,
No,
no,
thank you.
thank you. Okay, so the motion carries.
No.
No,
It has to be, does consent have to, how does that work? Is consent unanimous or does it just need to have a
Are
consent on
for a
it?
minute, no.
Okay, okay. I misunderstood that.
Oh, so it can carry, right?
Are we putting this back on the?
Oh, no, this is my stuff.
all right. Can I go off topic?
I might be, yeah.
Sure, go right ahead.
Under chapter 181 of the Utilities Code, the governing body of the general law municipality may adopt an ordinance that applies to a utility using public grounds and affects utility. Utility means a person, company, or corporation engaged in furnishing ... light to the public. So there you go. I think that's your answer.
What's the takeaway?
So which question?
Let's look at it.
We're talking about the
Yeah.
light.
Yeah,
That's off-
okay, but
that's
that needs to be. better
That's,
than
that's
that.
off topic, but I didn't want to let it pass.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Repeat it one more time. sorry.
Yeah, one more time.
Chapter 181, 901 of the Texas Utilities Code, the governing body of a general law municipality may adopt an ordinance that applies to a utility using public grounds of the municipality and that protects the utility. In this section, utility means a person, company, or corporation engaged in furnishing light to the public.
So we just have to have an ordinance, basically.
I think so.
To put a
Well,
light
see,
in.
since we're on that, I'm gonna go ahead and say that right now we do have an ordinance on the book that the cars there are parked illegally. That ordinance has not been enforced, and I think I've sent that to the county, to the city of Martindale. So I think before we just go ahead and do something or even think about something, we need to make sure our ordinance is right.
Yeah, that's
Report.
on the agenda tonight.
Okay, let's go on to the discussion action items. 7A is a discussion action on the use of the hotel motel tax funds for this year.
All right, so, hopefully, Lisa, you can see what Sharon, this came out late, so likely did not make your packet. I apologize for that. So the uses of hotel tax funds, as we've discussed on a couple of occasions, can be used on all expenditures. The stipulations are all expenditures must promote tourism and the convention and hotel industry. And B, all expenditures must further fall into one of the 9 statutory categories. City Council has previously reviewed those 9 categories and identified the following 3 as kind of the target areas where we want to focus that we thought was going to be feasible. First being the numbers references to the order in which they fall within those 9 statutory categories. So the first one, labeled 3, is advertising, solicitations, and promotions that attract tourists and convention delegates to the city or its vicinity. The next is promotion of the arts. And lastly, signage directing public to sites and attractions that are visited frequently by hotel guests in the city. And so when we reviewed this previously and we were working on the budget in FY21, we set aside $2,000 for advertising, $5,000 for promotion of the arts, and $5,000 for signage. So what we're talking about tonight is how we want, given it's in the budget, nothing has been done on it to this point. Budget year's quickly ending. I want to make sure that we make progress on this and present to you options to spend these funds that may have some adjustments to our budget. So the first example is advertising. And so here, this is something I put together quickly to put up on a billboard. So the picture that you see there is a stock image by Microsoft, but I felt it captured the mood that we'd probably want to convey. My vision is we could use a sign like this on a billboard that would attract people to stay and visit tourist attractions within the city of Martindale. Play and stay in Martindale, a refreshing destination. Live music every Friday and Saturday night. Take a right, second stoplight. I've went ahead and contacted the billboard company, and there's a billboard available right now just before you get to the cemetery. And this is a view of it as you're coming from San Marcos to Martindale along Highway 80, of what that could possibly look like. I think it would help drive tourism. The cost for something like this is a net monthly rate of $625, about $7,500 a year for a 12-month lease. The artwork cost is a $200 one-time fee, and that's basically to put it on vinyl. We may, to capture our own photography and other things, we look at potential costs for photography and design. What I came up with was a quick PowerPoint option. So I want to get council's feedback on pursuing that. This would require a change in our budget from $2,000 in advertising to probably somewhere in the ballpark of $8,000, maybe $8,500. The other items to consider are the Martindale Cafe is putting on a concert on June 12th. They have applied for a special permit for that event. They intend to shut down Main Street and have a concert in the middle of the street. We're working with them on their safety plans and documents. Some of the costs that are going to be incurred for the permitting are roughly on the order of $1,000. There's a potential that we could say we're going to provide them those funds for the performing arts program, whether it's the concert series that goes into the evening and then again on Sunday. And so it drive overnight stays, hopefully, for people who want to visit both events.
Open for discussion?
And and then the third option, or these are not exclusive, you could do one, both, or all, is partnering with the Martindale Cafe for a city-sponsored music festival and providing up to approximately $5,000 to fund the costs of putting on that production. And something like that would be late in the year, like September, where there's more time to put it together, advertise it a little bit, and drive more foot traffic, and possibly, they let them be the promoters, but possibly bring in other vendors or what have you, make it a bigger event. And then signage. So discussion.
Yeah, I'm not big on those big billboards. I think they're ugly. I don't like them. I would rather spend the money on artists, help the Martindale Cafe. If we want to put a sign, maybe a small sign there, like the Baptist Church or something that shades, some smaller sign that would be a lot less costly. And I think the word gets out anyway. But personally, I do not like billboards. But that's me.
They're effective though.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money out there.
Jan?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, let Lisa.
Go ahead, Lisa. You're on.
The question that I had that would potentially spur some discussion is about the number 3, advertising, solicitations, and promotions. Other than a billboard in the sky, I would like to hear from others what you consider advertising to be. Now, I just heard Mike reference a smaller sign. That's still signage on Highway 80.
In the same corridor, correct?
Yes, ma'am. I think we should drill down and create basically a breakdown of what this statement on number 3 states. What it really is defined as, in our opinions.
Other signage discussion?
Advertising, solicitations, and promotions. Is that referencing?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay.
What would you want to drill down on? I guess I don't understand the question.
Well, okay, let's just take it one bite at a time. Advertising. Other means of advertising besides a sign on the road, whether it be, don't throwing darts, I'm just throwing out names, whether it be mail outs, whether it be putting out in local tourist publications. It could be contacting the Airbnb folks and having, some type of cooperation in that regard. I mean, to me, it's,
Advertising in the paper,
sorry.
advertising in the paper,
To hear
mean,
what,
Well, I think
that's another, but those are just other options.
Jared, weren't you gonna work on a pamphlet with
Yeah,
hotel,
flyers.
things like that?
Yeah, we could put together flyers and pamphlets. The thought would be if we did, it's the ability to reach the most eyeballs as possible.
Right.
And people who would likely respond to that advertising. I think people traveling on Highway 80 are more likely to respond than buying an ad in Texas Monthly to come visit Martindale for the facilities and amenities that are attracted to here. Most of the people who are staying in Martindale probably know of Martindale, or they're staying in Martindale to enjoy the river or some other local amenity. It's probably not their first time here, or if it is, they're going to learn about it and say, oh, you know what, I'm coming downtown and I'm going to visit one of the tourist attractions of Martindale, which is our lovely downtown historic area.
I think it would be just out of curiosity to even consider a radio spot. People that drive up and down Highway 80 specifically every day, they already know. They may not know what's going on in Martindale, but they're aware of it. It's just a thought.
We could do that. I'm not aware of the costs, and we'd have to really look at, what radio stations people are listening to,
Sure.
how often we'd have to buy a spot and a slot.
We have a
I think the
resource.
billboard is the most direct advertising way to
Yeah.
get to people who would possibly respond to it.
You can do the local cable does commercials for businesses.
Not at $7,000.
No, it's more than that.
Let me clarify, let me clarify. I'm not against signs per se, like, for example, you're from the Northeast. Northeast has billboards ordinances. I mean, they have small signs on the interstate. Hey,
Depending what-
discover Martindale, a little proper sign. But to spend that kind of money for a big billboard, I just think it'd be better spent for a smaller sign. And it would be as effective, I think, personally.
Actually, that's about half the cost of billboards.
Yeah, they're expensive.
This one is pretty inexpensive.
That-
They're usually.
Okay.
There are smaller billboards on Highway 80 that are less expensive. Most of, as you first come over Old Bastrop Road 21, there's some smaller billboards off to the side. Those are cheaper by about a couple $1,000s a year, and they're closer to $5,000. They're smaller, they're more hidden, they're further away from Martindale. I think in terms of location, this one makes sense because it's right as you're entering the city boundary.
How about, can I throw this out? How about if we could do an ordinance? How about if we make a sign, a permanent sign, a small enough sign at, there by Shades or whatever, we could get access, a small sign, say Discover Martindale?
So the signage would have to direct public to sites and attractions.
Okay.
So the way that looks to me is if you're traveling around San Marcos, you're going to see those green and blue signs saying, Gary softball fields this way, river recreation that way, those sort of things. And so, and other cities have similar things. What that would basically be is river access this way, historic downtown that way. And then there's some conversation of whether, in order to put historic on there, whether you need to have it designated as a historic
Right.
mark or not.
we
I
got-
don't know if that's,
And you got play and stay. And it's right underneath the Don's Fish Camp advertisement too. And this is not in the city limits, this billboard. sign
This is not in the city limits.
And that's the place
I
to put this
like-
out there.
Just a minute, Lisa.
I like having something, but hey, you're coming to Martindale, but you can go to Martindale and go, well, where am I gonna stay? If you're just driving by going, oh, I'd love to, stay here. Well, are we gonna say, well, go online? Airbnb, see if anything's available. I don't want to advertise Airbnb. I want to advertise Martindale. I like that you can see, live music and the arts. I think that's a great idea. And I don't care about the sign, I just feel like we need to have something to say, hey, here's Martindale, come see us. I mean, even if it's
So,
just to
Do you
come and
like
have
the
coffee
billboard or not?
I like it.
Yeah.
I'd rather see the water tower.
Oh, this is a concept.
I know.
That
But
gives
that's
you a
just my
mind's eye of the kind of thing, kind of vibe to
sure.
go for.
ideas,
Hire photographer.
that are really in the arts.
Well, I almost like where Jack Mudd has his
Yeah.
sign. That is more like a
Yeah.
lower level, lower sign that you see more as you're coming into town. It's on the right side of the road. This billboard is sort of way up on the left. I think if people are coming into town, they're sort of focusing on what's on the right side of the road. Maybe we can talk to some private landowners or Jack Mudd to even lease his sign, because right now, and we need to check about the scenic corridor ordinance about if signs, I thought, were supposed to be used to promote businesses within the city limits of Martindale. That sign is promoting Pinterest, pecan.
Somebody
Right.
just said that to me the other day,
And-
and I was gonna check on it, but
And so I think we could put a sign similar to that on his billboard, but in the future, I'd like to see the regulations of the signs in the scenic corridor and what type of signs you can put up. Because I think unless Lisa knows, Lisa.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be specific to Martindale. It has to meet the building standards in regards to height and width of distance from the street. And as long as it's not anything that is advertising illicit activities, then it is permitted. Just a thought that I had, the notion of, what did we say here? Was the billboard you said, Jared? Kevin?
In reference to what, the cost or the placement, or
$7,500. Is that for a year?
that's for a year?
So just a thought, I'm just in my mind, I'm driving through other small town communities, and sometimes you'll go through and you'll see a little civic center or something that has a low profile sign that has a scrolling marquee that can be changed. The sign itself is permanent, but the message is changeable.
yeah, we don't,
That might not qualify for the hotel tax.
yeah.
Well,
Okay.
don't we have to have a tourist bureau or a civic center?
There's No, there's nothing in the law that says you have to have that. That is an option to use the funding on that, but you do not have to have a tourist bureau. You don't have to have a visitmartindale.com organization. You don't need a chamber of commerce. You don't need any of
Those
those.
things, if those things were required, it would effectively exclude most general law municipalities from spending tourism dollars. And the law's not going to do that. It's going to provide an avenue for small cities to spend tourism dollars to the best of their ability.
So right now, we have on January or June 12th, the Little Cafe is doing a 1-year anniversary. And so we kind of discussed, could we help them with costs? And so that was one of the things that we were just talking about, helping them a little bit with some of their costs, like the permit and stuff. And then maybe working with them later to do a bigger promotion. So is anybody interested in doing that?
That'd be great.
Oh, I think so too.
So does anybody want to make a motion?
Well, can I
Right.
have discussion?
Wait,
yes.
Because
go
I've
ahead,
been, so like for the signs, like the 7,500 for for the board, you know, that's good. But like whenever I drive to Utopia, what's the first thing I see? The sign that says "Welcome to Utopia," and then that's like an investment. That's something that that is lasting. That's something that continues to be there, and it kind of like
Agree.
goes with the community.
I
And
agree.
you know, it could be like the year that Martindale was established. You could have like an arrow or like riverways with an arrow pointing to river or historical downtown. But that's something that's going to, you know, keep on giving. If you like the idea of maybe renting out the billboard from Jack Mudd and then just purchasing our vinyl from a shop in Lockhart, it might be cheaper that way rather than the 7,500. And then you could
Of
do that. The vinyl, the advertisement that you put on the bulletin board.
The picture.
Yes. So then even after we did finish with them, we would still be able to use the vinyl, you know, again, at another location if we wanted to, or at one of the events. Another thing that I wanted to say, so as far as the sign, as far as advertising, I think if we did a community page on our city webpage, usually when I go to communities, I look at the city and then I go to the city webpage and I see what they're doing. You know, you're able to check out current events, you're able to see what's going on, you know,
That's
on there.
great.
But I think that's,
We
you
have
know,
a community
advertising
page.
that we don't even have to, you know, pay for, where we could utilize money to, you know, invest that into other community artists or other community events that could happen here. Another thing that I would like to see, and I know this is kind of like worded specifically to events that are going to happen here in the near future, but I think if we, you know, were encompassing of all businesses in Martindale and not just downtown, that would help other businesses to feel also included
That we're
in
not just
discussion.
favoring.
Yes, I think it's just more encompassing to do that.
Mhm.
So that's the only thing that I would like to see.
Yeah, could I add one more statement?
Sure.
If you had like Mr. Clinton, and you suggested a smaller sign like at Jack Mudd's, we could have some way to attach, like, we got the free, such bands playing, or we have a canoe race, or we have a bicycle race. We could just have eye hooks and just clip it on underneath that sign. And that, something like that, you could do that with a
The
billboard.
welcome to Martindale sign would have to come out of the general fund, not out of the hotel taxes.
But
Correct.
And then we could get additional signage. That's a good idea, is to clip on vinyls when there's
Yes.
special events.
Mhm.
I also, why aren't we helping with the 4th of July parade? I thought a lot of this is supposed to be, is it supposed to be geared towards just city sponsored events?
Well, but the 4th
Are-
of July was a last minute kind of thing, like,
Well, I still don't see
and
why
there
we.
aren't that many.
For the
cars.
parade itself likely is not going to drive tourism and overnight stays. It's not going to support the
Oh, it's
hotel.
just a single day.
It's not going to support the hotel
Okay.
industry.
I'm
Warning,
just saying,
single warning.
so it doesn't necessarily have to be city-sponsored events to try to get the people in.
No, a lot of cities, what they do with this funding is open it up and accept bids from nonprofits operating in the city, such as a Chamber of Commerce, to, if they're having an event, they can apply to the city for the funding, and the city gives them that funding if that event meets the criteria that's allowed in statute. We have no civic organizations other than the city and the library and the fire department in the city of Martindale. So if we're going to use the $36,000 we have on hand, I think that using a billboard like this will continue to support our business community, continue to drive tourism to Martindale, and takes advantage of the tens of thousands of cars that pass through on any given week.
Well, and I think helping the cafe is good because especially after Shades closed, we only have 2 businesses downtown.
Right.
And it would help encourage them to promote their event. And they are bringing people downtown quite a bit.
And also they had karaoke at, over there by at the other cafe in that little civic center,
Yeah.
our conference center too. You know, here we are singling out just one place.
Doesn't have to be. We could delete that.
Yeah, okay.
If you look on I added that late as an option to consider, because that helps add a different perspective than just the river.
Uh-huh.
Try to advertise a multi-dimensional aspect of Martindale. And so live music is one of the biggest draws for visitors to the city by far. And so it made sense to me to capitalize on that.
Can we offer
What-
like city grants to, for this funding for people to advertise karaoke at the whatever things that are going on. I don't know if that would, can be considered art, but
We've,
you know, it's entertainment.
the advertising would have to drive, support the tourism and hotel industry.
Okay.
So,
That's
and
a
event,
simple event.
it probably wouldn't work.
Yeah.
You could support it as a performing arts thing instead of supporting their advertising, helping their production cost. That's likely something that could happen, depending on the nature and the scope of the production. That's why the two arts programs that I included on the slide, the one for upcoming June 12th, which has a late into the evening concert series, and then again, music again the following day, and then a multi-day music festival over a weekend. Those sort of things are what would drive Airbnb and stays and short-term rental stays, since we don't have traditional hotels in the city.
So I wanted to ask, oh, go ahead, Lisa.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to throw out that I agree with that we need something that is permanent and stationary, like the welcome to Martindale sign. The one thing that I also feel like is that, you know, we've been kicking this can around for a long time, and I'm super thrilled about a billboard. However, it's only a one-year contract. And so to get something started, and then ultimately, I would like to see those funds that would go into supporting a chamber of commerce. That would be, you know, obviously run by funded, just like other entities have been funded before. Because the chamber of commerce is, they are going to be the ones who are going to have personal relationships. They're going to know all of the businesses. They are going to help promote and support all of the businesses, not just one or two. So, you know, I'm looking a little bit more big picture. Definitely think we need to do something now, but I would like to see something that,
From my perspective, other than the tubing industry that's on the periphery of town, there's only one business operating in the city of Martindale that drives visitors or tourism. It made sense to me for that perspective to consider putting them on a
That
billboard.
cafe was on.
And it's this.
I mean, no one's visiting Martindale for the Dollar General.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the other.
Unless, I mean, you could look at doing the Martindale Schoolhouse or something like that. They put on private events that aren't open to the public. And so if they did public events, maybe that's something a little different.
Yeah, if they were doing some kind of big festival or something.
Yeah.
Does it have to be seasonal?
So-
Can it be seasonal?
You could, but you're gonna have to repay for new vinyl every time.
Yeah, so the question to you is roughly $300 for the artwork. And then how much for the new vinyl?
The 625 includes the lease and the vinyl production. So, I would have to go back and look at the quote to see if they broke out that monthly rate.
But I mean, ultimately, the largest cost is securing the billboard. And then say, if once a quarter, the city wanted to swap out the vinyl, you're probably looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $600.
Yeah, that's probably about reasonable.
Okay.
Maybe somewhere less than 1,000. I would.
Less than, yeah.
Let's get a pulse here. I think Mr. Clinton agrees with me. I think you do too. I don't know. I think if we could look into this and get a permanent sign for our city, Jack Bud's Place or something like that, a smaller sign that's in our ordinances, make it really nice and have ways to hook things or put events coming to our city. Because like I said, I think they're tacky. I think they're ugly. And I think if you're closer, like Mr. Clinton said, if you're closer to Martindale, I think it's better directions and you could advertise special events and we could have our own permanent sign.
But tonight, the permanent sign comes from a different fund. So we wanted to ask about this event on the 12th.
Okay.
June
Well-
12th. No?
Yeah, yes, we're asking about three things. And it's racked all, they can be considered separately.
Okay.
So I was attempting to drive discussion regarding what does the city of Martindale want to do regarding advertising. This is an option that made a lot of sense to me. I brought to council for consideration. I think it sounds like we do not have consensus, or at least the consensus is not a billboard. But first, if you can provide me direction on what you do want to see, then I can develop plans. Otherwise, for the third or fourth year in a row, we're going to be collecting hotel tax funds and not using it.
Right.
And so I don't think that serves the interests of the people who visit or the business owners who work in the tourism and hotel industry. If we're going to have this tax that other people outside the city are paying for, that's intended to support their industry, and by golly, we should try to support it in some way.
It's just it sounds like y'all want a permanent sign, but that's from a different fund.
Right, and that would have to be a different agenda item.
Well,
different
you could
agenda.
potentially have if you're looking at like a masonry or sign or something like that, that's likely a general fund expense item.
Yes.
If you're looking at I want a smaller sign and I want to lease Jack Mud, it's going to be the same scenario here, maybe just a little bit cheaper.
Well,
That's the only difference.
Yeah.
It's a little cheaper and it's closer to our city limits, and I like the fact that we could probably attach something to that for special events. Whereas a billboard, you really can't.
Well, can't we just try it for a year?
I don't, I just think they're tax, but that's just my.
I know, they.
It's not going anywhere. It's either Martindale or somebody else.
Right.
That's my opinion.
Maybe we can get an update from the historic committee when he gives us a update on him trying to get a historic Martindale sign. He was working on that, I thought, and was also trying to get a small plaque for the school. So I remember many months ago that Craig was trying to even get
Oh, yeah,
one of
yeah.
those green and white signs that said, historic Martindale left turn. I do like the idea of a chamber of commerce. I think we could use a building, maybe one of Carlton, or use a desk at the library perhaps. I don't know.
It's not a hotel tax use.
A chamber of commerce. is-
No. The only thing we could do that's similar to that is a visitor center. But you're not going to build a visitor center for $35,000.
But believe it, I am for the arts. I am for the bands. I'm definitely those two.
So I think like for that, just like to buy us a year so we could get a plan worked out. I think that the billboard would like be instant, that's something that's attainable, like within. And then we could work on something like with the longevity, with the sign that has longevity. I think like with just doing this now and then just working on a plan for something permanent, that would be good, especially like if we have the funds now.
Right.
And I think that, in that case, it would be good until, it'll
We
buy
can
us some
figure it out in
time.
the budget.
Yes.
So,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm all for that. I say let's try it for a year. Let's, okay, the $1,000 for the concert event, and we probably should discuss a little bit more if we want to okay the 5,000, because that's a little bit more to partner with the Martindale Cafe for city-sponsored festival. Is that just one event, or is that several?
The 5,000, that was in response to, on the budget, we have $5,000 set aside for performing arts. And so it'd be that budget item going to one event.
Could you ask about the billboard, that if we did lease it for a year, is there a possibility of changing the vinyl sign like every 3 months or something?
You just pay for it.
Yeah. it's just
I mean, if
another-
that's
he said it was another-
$200, I mean, that's not
No,
much.
he was saying more would be.
$200 is for basically the artwork rendering. It's not for the printing of the vinyl signage.
Up to 1,000 to change that vinyl.
Could we do that? Could we do this? I mean,
See what happens,
let's-
see if that sign makes a difference,
could we do this? Approve for the promotion of the arts, the bands, help the cafe, and then get with Craig, and maybe we could look at the sign, a permanent sign. But definitely approve of the promotion of the arts.
Craig with a.
Craig with the schoolhouse, he was saying something about he wanted to,
Yeah, but
he was,
they're just like.
he was looking at a
historical
sign.
markers.
Yeah,
Well-
those are historical.
Well, I mean, maybe work with them or something, we could coordinate something. But I would definitely
Yeah,
I'd be definitely for the,
The benefit of them having that marker is then no one could call, phooey on you saying somebody saying historic Martindale. At that point, you have something historic in Martindale that's been recognized.
Yeah.
You're not just saying historic because we think so. It's been recognized by some independent party, it's on some historic register.
Right.
It makes it a little more official to make that claim.
that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
That's the benefit.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that could be worked out.
Do we do, I mean, this is just, I'm throwing it out, we approve the band, the promotion of the arts, help the cafe, and then possibly future discussion on the sign with,
I have a question about the front end. So I heard you say nonprofit. So like the Catholic Church right there, whenever they have their 3-day Jamaica, would they be
Yeah,
eligible to get?
they could too. They could too.
Because
they're
all kinds of
promoting
stuff.
3 nights, 2 nights.
It is.
Yeah.
They use
see,
that for 3.
if we owned our own
Yeah, that'd be
sign, or had
great.
a sign we could clip on things, we could do it for multi-use.
When's the
That
Jamaica?
overhead, you can't.
When
do
is the
that.
Jamaica?
You could Clip on, have something you could clip on to it
Right,
for special events.
yeah.
For
we're
the-
all for
And
that.
something right there somewhere,
Yeah.
But Micah's not happening this year, but it's
No.
happening next year. So
It'll
it's something we
happen
could
next
look
year.
Yeah.
So you
They-
can,
They're still wanting to.
They may.
or I mean, and the Highway 80 feed barn, they put on events too. They're interested in live music as well. Doesn't just have to be the cafe. It just makes sense if we're going to do it downtown, that we would
Yes.
partner with them. But it doesn't have
So
to.
this is just a fund that we can divvy into that are set aside for special.
Well, we've already
events.
set aside it in the budget. I'm looking for is
So-
clear direction on, all right, we put it in the budget.
Uh-huh.
Let's start cutting some checks and doing something with it.
Yes.
So I want to go ahead and make a motion. I want to make a motion to approve arts program number 1. I also would like to approve the advertising cost for the net monthly rate of $625 to $7,500 a year. I would,
can we do them separately?
I would not like to include number 3 in this.
Let's
for
go.
this to go
For the
around.
5,000.
Yes, I would like to wait on that.
Okay. So you're motioning for the billboard and for
Can we do
the
it separately?
June 12th
Uh-huh.
concert.
Let's do it separately.
So I'd like to make a motion to accept the advertising cost, net monthly rate of $625 to $7,500 a year. Artwork cost is $200 one-time fee, potential cost for photography and design are extra.
Do you want to limit it to just 1 year?
Yes, 1 year.
That's all you can do anyway.
Oh, okay. I second.
All right. Is there any more discussion?
Just one notion, Jared, I'm assuming that there'll be some type of proof for the actual billboard. I recommend that it not say every Friday and Saturday.
Okay.
Mayor, would you mind if I shared my proposed artwork?
Go for it.
I thought that the best proposed artwork would be a picture of Councilmember McLeod floating down the river with a stainless aluminum container in his hand.
I'm not pretty enough. I'm not pretty enough. Wrong sex, man. Too old.
Okay,
Alright,
let's, we have a motion and a second, and Sam, how do you vote?
I say no on that.
Councilmember McLeod?
I say no.
Lisa, how do you vote on the billboard?
Say yes.
Okay, so it's 3-2, the motion carries.
If I may just throw one.
We have a telephone, just so we get the votes.
Oh, yes.
Oh, Sonia?
Yes.
Aye.
Jan? Oh, I thought since they made the motion, they didn't have to.
Yeah, but officially, we still have to say aye,
Oh, okay.
I guess.
Well, you know,
Motion carries.
The motion carries.
Okay, so I would like to make another motion for the arts program for allowing Martindale Cafe for their June 12th concert event to cover the permitting cost of approximately $1,000.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any more discussion? Okay, if not, let's go ahead and take the vote. Jan,
Aye.
Sam,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Lisa,
hi.
and Sonia. Okay, so the motion carries to support the Martindale Cafe.
And I would like to make a motion to table the arts program to partner with the Martindale Cafe for a city-sponsored music festival for approximately $5,000 until further discussion for the next meeting.
Okay,
So it will
And
be
is
on the
there-
next meeting.
I would just like, yeah, to just, yeah.
Okay, I'll second that.
okay.
The 5,000 could be used to say advertising. Could it be used to pay the musicians?
Good point.
Yeah,
Okay,
the production cost.
okay.
So we could get in more detail at the next meeting on the exact
Yes.
cost. Okay.
You're
Okay,
to table it?
so we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion
About these things?
Who seconded?
about this, tabling this
Okay.
one
Table
for
that.
5,000?
Okay.
We'll discuss it.
Oh, if not, we will go ahead and take a vote. Jan,
Aye.
Sam,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Lisa,
Hi.
and Sonia.
Aye.
Okay, so the motion carries. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the next item. On membership selection for the different boards we have, for the parks, for river, and the historic advisory board.
So we have 2 vacancies, possibly 3, on the Parks Advisory Board. Sam Clinton's term expires this year. And Karen Lombarger and Catherine Glaze resigned from the Parks Advisory Board. So we have 3 vacancies to fill, and I'd have to look at the ordinance, but I'm not sure if the Parks Advisory Board selects their own chair, or the city council appoints the chair, but we need to clarify the chair role as well.
Yeah.
I have something. I think Sam had stepped down when he got on city council last November. And then we put on Angela Jimenez.
Oh, but then she resigned. She said she did not want to be the chairperson.
Well, she didn't want to be the chairperson,
Oh,
but
but
she's still
she's a
on the
part of it.
committee.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Angela Jimenez, we
So she is a
elected her.
member.
Yes,
Yeah,
For whom?
for the
park.
committee,
for the parks.
for the Parks Advisory Board.
She was
Uh,
appointed the same time I was.
Oh, okay.
That's right.
All right, so we have 4.
Well,
No, we
except for
still
me.
have. Well,
Are you
Sam-
still, are you still on it or are you not? I thought you
Will be
were,
Until 6/21.
which is now.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you had stepped down.
Yeah, well,
I did step down because Angela was going to be the chairperson, but then upon talking to her, and she said she does
Oh,
not
okay.
want to be the chairperson, that I took it back on to until we find someone else. I have talked to Susan Schoen, who submitted an application, and she wants to be on the board.
who was, did the Parks Advisory Board internally appoint someone?
They did.
We
Yeah.
did, but then she changed her mind.
Okay, so that would still be a vacancy because under chapter 93, the advisory board consists of members appointed by the council.
Well, okay, let me clarify this. Angela and I were appointed by the council.
Yes.
January, February, somewhere in there.
January 12th is when
January
it was
12th.
up. Did we
So,
do both vacancies? I thought it was just 1.
no, it was
Well,
two.
Just 2?
It might have been at 2 different times.
No, we were
No,
at
we
the
did
same
it at
time.
the same
day.
meeting.
Okay.
And then at the next meeting, Angela was going to be the chair.
Okay.
and Sam was gonna step down. But within a week, she said, no, I don't want to be the chair. So she's still on the board. She didn't ask to get off the board.
Well,
She just-
actually, she took over the meeting as chair at the one meeting, so she was in that position.
She really didn't,
But
no.
she took over the meeting.
Okay.
Yes, she did. I was at the meeting. I was at that meeting. And then did she turn in a letter of resignation?
No.
Okay, so all that needs to
But-
be,
She was never voted by the city council.
Yeah,
To
but
be
she-
chair.
well,
To be chair, so she was never officially
Well, I don't
chair.
think city council has to vote, the
No,
commission
the-
itself votes. to
the
be
commission,
chair.
the commission itself selects its chair and its vice chair. But the point is, that the 5-member board that was appointed by the council is Sam, Richard, Jeff, Karen, Catherine. And so to the extent that there's someone other than those 5 individuals purporting to be a member of the board, that person is not, because one only may become a member of the board if appointed by the council.
She was.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, here's the minutes from the 12th.
They
Historic,
appointed someone to the historic commission.
Parks,
I remember appointing.
here it is. The motion,
Oh, it was your husband that was appointed.
so here are the 2 appointments to Parks. You're right, Angela Jimenez was appointed at the same time as Catherine Glaze, for the Parks Board on January 12th. So that was in response to your resignation then?
I don't know if I even have submitted a written resignation
I
myself.
don't think he submitted, you don't
Okay.
have a written resignation. I don't have one on file.
I was waiting to see if Angela would organize the next meeting of the Parks Advisory Board since we did elect the chairperson. But within a short amount of time, she resigned from being the chairperson, so I guess we need to get a letter from her saying so. And then I just took it on to keep the commission going.
Was there a
But
vice chair?
uh-huh.
Anybody-
I think you were the vice chair.
No, we just had a secretary and the chair.
Okay.
We didn't have a vice chair.
Okay.
I thought you had stepped down. I thought you were just serving as the liaison.
I
From
wanted
city
to do that, but I haven't submitted a letter, so I've never resigned really. But did
Do we have any volunteers?
anyone submit an application with the notification you put in the billing about vacancies?
Not recent.
No.
We gotta have,
Well, I know Susan wants to be on the Parks Advisory Board.
And she's previously applied.
Oh, she has, okay.
She applied in the January timeframe.
So then we do have an application.
So we gotta have an application.
Yes.
I
So
looked
we do
through,
have Susan's application.
Yeah. I looked through my paperwork before the meeting and I couldn't find her application. I wanted to find it and bring it, but if either of you could try and find that, or I'll reach out to her. Okay, thank you.
And so as of right now, the Parks Board does not have a chairperson.
So why don't
Well, I
we-
never resigned, so I guess I am the
But
chairperson.
Angela was appointed,
And she never resigned, so she needs to resign first.
and then you need to get appointed, if that's how, what needs to
Why
happen.
did she resign from what? The board or the role of chair?
Roll of chair.
I mean, that's how your board is organizing itself.
I guess.
I mean,
Okay,
I don't know if that sounds like internal baseball to the Parks Advisory
Mhm.
Board.
Back and forth.
Well, Karen
Well-
and I have both submitted a letter of resignation.
Okay,
So the current membership then is Sam, Clinton, Richard Solomon, Jeff Latimer, and Angela Jimenez.
Yes.
and so we.
So we only have one vacancy to fill then.
Okay, then I say let's review some applications next week. I mean, next meeting, next
Well,
city
we're
council
gonna
meeting.
review Susan's.
Okay. You know, and then, if
I
there's
guess-
any other ones.
Does she still want to be on?
Yes, I spoke to her about it.
Okay, well, we just.
Was there something more you wanted to review about these, their terms? or-
Yeah, so their terms are all expiring this month. And so if we handle it later this month, we're probably okay. But you'll likely need to reappoint those with expiring terms. We set in place places just so we could better manage term expiration dates. It's somewhat tricky to manage at first, but eventually it's going to help us maintain. City council has place memberships and that place has a defined term. If, as people come and go, if everybody's on their own 2-year term, it makes it very difficult to manage on an annual basis who's on the board or not. And so setting up a similar parallel place structure will help solidify that. Now, doesn't mean you have to go out and find new candidates when that term expires. You just reappoint that person as long as they're still interested. We keep on going.
So Sam's expires this year, right?
This
Mhm.
month.
This month.
It's done, right?
And
Yes.
And so Angela, Richard, and Jeff are all on till 22?
Well, Angela 23.
January
Richard
2021.
was appointed on 18, so his was up in 20, the 2-year term.
He must have been reappointed
Yeah.
because it says 22.
Yeah, but-
What could clean the books a bit is if on the next appointment, we just clarify, these are the terms for each place for these folks. And we kind of start afresh.
All right, should we table this and aim to clarify the terms for each place of the Parks Advisory Board and review applications?
Mhm.
Okay, all right, I'd like to make a motion that we table this item to.
The Parks Advisory Board item, because there's other boards on the following slides
got it.
that may be
Oh,
in less
okay,
shape than
and
this.
we include Parks, River, and Historic
Okay,
Advisory Board, that we table this to clarify the place membership terms and
Angela's resignation, we need to get a letter for that.
yes.
well,
and-
is she resigning from the board or just the
Just
chair?
chair.
She doesn't need to.
Then she doesn't need a
Oh,
letter.
okay.
And review any possible applications for terms that have expired.
Does it say in the ordinance that you have to live within the city limits, or can people that live in the ETJ be on the board as well?
ETJ? There's several people. I think it's in the ETJ.
Because like Charlie Olds
Yeah.
is in the ETJ and he's on the river committee, so I think that you do not have to only live in the city limits.
That's correct.
That's correct. Jay Daniels also. Steve Fonville also.
Mhm.
The motion.
For what?
The only
All right, let me
requirement
do
for
this.
service is that these individuals will have a known and demonstrated interest, competence, or knowledge of city parks.
Okay.
And it should generally reflect the ethnic makeup of the city when possible.
Okay, so you want me to restate the motion?
You said,
That's
Unless
gonna
I
be
say that-
just for the park.
Just for the park, right?
No, I was gonna include
All
parks,
three of them.
rivers, and
Do we need
historic boards to clarify the terms,
you
to
said,
clarify the
Okay.
terms.
okay, you changed
To-
it again.
I think it's,
All right.
This is what I wrote here.
Motion,
Are there any pending applications other than the one for the Parks Committee?
No, but we have a series of term expirations that are coming. And
I mean,
my recommendation is that we clarify those terms, places for individuals and expiration dates.
for all.
and
So
so
for like Craig Foster, renew his,
Mhm.
and the rest.
Yeah, I agree. Nothing bad happens to the city under the code of ordinances if these terms expire. There's just vacancies. So if the city announces openings,
right.
that would be.
Well, it'd be nice to at least have some kind of little blurb. Okay, this is what's coming up. If anybody is interested, I don't know, but put it on the calendar. That terms expire for place 1, place 2, and place 3 of these 3 boards, you know.
Now, that place structure is not exactly outlined in ordinance, but I think it's a good management tool to.
Right.
Was it on our website as well, or just on the billing utility billing.
Adrian, was it on the website? Yeah, it is on the website.
Okay.
So do these all expire in June for all three boards? Because it
That,
doesn't
that,
say.
that clarity is not unknown to me at this point.
So we need work.
So again, I think June is the right time to do this sort of action. And so if we want to do some reappointments and clarifications,
We'll
Well,
do it at, starting it, every
Mhm.
May of each year, saying.
that way, if,
Are coming up.
it follows,
Are you
the
staying on?
council election. In our ordinance, it talks about as soon as practicable after.
Yeah,
So your motion is to.
Is to table.
This is what I wrote down, is what you were saying. I said bunker motion to table item 7B in order to clarify membership terms and review membership applications
Mhm.
of all three boards,
of all three boards. Okay.
Yeah. boards and commissions, or whatever.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second discussion of what, with possible appointment.
With possible appointment.
Possible appointment.
Yeah, because we may need to appoint somebody on that.
Yeah.
At least on the
Possible
parks.
appointment. Okay.
There
Okay.
may be other ones
With
that
the
may be.
amendment, I'll second.
Yellow second?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion?
So since it's being tabled, we're not going to discuss the historic committee or the river committee tonight.
No, we're gonna try and clarify it before the next meeting.
Okay. Aye on the, oh, well, you haven't asked
I
me
just
yet.
wondered if there was
Yeah.
additional
You haven't asked me yet.
discussion. Okay, if there's no further discussion, Sam, what do you vote?
I vote aye to table it, yes.
Mike,
Aye, to table it.
Lisa,
Fine.
Sonia?
Aye.
You can
Okay.
say all in favor and then all
All in
opposed. If
favor.
anybody, if nobody opposes, then everybody's in favor. And
Okay.
then that way. you don't
Now that we're all-
have to go around.
Now that we're in the same room, when
Yeah.
everyone's online, it makes it difficult to
Right.
capture the voice though.
I mean, sometimes we
Okay.
can clarify.
Okay, Sam, we put this on about the Parks Master Plan.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know if you had anything to add to that or.
Yeah,
any
so
discussion about
so what this is Martindale needs a strategic vision for its park system to complement its envision Martindale 2025 community strategic plan and to inform grant submissions. The prior mayoral administration, myself, about a year and a half ago, provided Sam Clinton, when he was in his role as the chair of the Parks Advisory Board, a list of questions and issues to think through and come up with as they do the Parks Master Plan. Hasn't been successful to date. If we're going to go forward and go after grants, it's imperative that we do some sort of planning. And the best way to do that is to get community input. And so, although the development of the park land will be executed over 3 phases, which for those new land acquisitions that were purchased part of FEMA buyouts, we should still go in with a unified vision of what we want that entire park system to be, and so that we can plan out each phase and address those in our grant submissions. And so we really need to identify the vision. What should the city aspire to achieve with its parks? The goals or the key elements that need to be included in the plan to realize that vision, land use, layout, maintenance, and support, and the objectives, the specific efforts that are going to be required to complete each of those goals in those phases. And so in some ways, it's taking the responsibility from the Parks Advisory Committee based on the lack of progress on this issue. And I'd like to assign Adrian Flores, our Assistant City Clerk for Utilities, to lead the development of that master plan under my guidance and supervision as a city administrator. And the plan is to follow the same framework that we did for our community-based planning, do a branding and launch sequence, go out and gather data through surveys, public workshops, and also take some of the tools that are used by nearby cities, camp, and other planning organizations such as Campo to look at population and use estimates and those things that so we can develop a park plan that foresees the future and perform analysis on that data, present the results of that community feedback, and then work to develop that parks master plan. Part of that, at some point, we'll probably want to consider hiring an engineering firm or using our current engineering firm, Freeland and Turk, and their subcontractor for landscape architect consultant with some of the remaining park funds to help us bring that vision to life and support those grant applications. And so what I'm thinking where that is artist renderings, maybe some CAD, computer aided design models of layouts of the park, and something that really jumps off the page that's going to make a difference for the city and that will be our North Star as we go forward. And so this follows on a discussion that we've had with council previously. I would intend to put Adrian on this detail 1 day a week, and then also evenings and weekends as needed to provide to support those public workshops and really get this started. The timeline for this is going to take some time. As you saw the master plan, we began that discussion process in December, January. By the time we got it finished, it was near August. And so it's going to be some months long things, but I think the process worked before. I think the community is aware of that process. I think we might even get better turnout and participation on this issue and given that familiarity with the process. And so we'd still intend to use the Parks Advisory Board as the place for those workshops, not exclusively, but in addition to. And so they put us on the agenda and we can have that discussion with them, given their role as the advisory committee to the city council. We'll definitely do that as well. So
And,
thoughts and discussion.
well, I like the idea that you, sorry,
No, that's fine.
I'm supposed to be recognized, but anyways, yeah, I think that's a good idea, but I really think that we need to make sure that at least one advisory board member is involved in some of the stuff. I mean, you may
If
need
you-
some help on, coming up with a survey and how you're going to do it, who's going to deliver it, and should we spend money on mail outs and that kind of thing. Because I think it's really important that we do get input from the city.
So all of that, I think we can do. What if the involvement, if you want to make sure there's involvement of the Parks Advisory Committee, we could, the presentation of results we could go through the Parks Advisory Committee for their endorsement en route to the city council. And so that they would have opportunity before it came to city council to provide input and perspective on the results of that analysis. That way we capture it. But yeah, and there'll definitely be a part of that process.
The committee first, get their input and to make changes before you bring it to us.
Definitely.
So I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to accept
Okay.
7C. I wanna assign Adrian Flores, the Assistant City Clerk, to lead the development of the Parks Master Plan under the guidance and supervision of the City Administrator.
I'd like to discuss this a little more.
Okay.
Sam, this has been your baby for a while.
Well-
I mean, we're, I
There's a
think we're,
motion on the table. You need a second
I'll-
before discussion.
Yeah, we do have to have a second
Oh, I'm
or it
sorry.
dies.
I'm sorry.
Does anybody want to second it?
Oh, yeah, I'll second.
Okay, it's
Discussion?
open for discussion.
Sam, you got any input? You've been involved with this. We've both been involved with this.
I think that we did have several meetings with the Parks Advisory Committee on the plans for the phases 1, 2, and 3. We did take the past mayor down to phase 1 and showed him what we thought. But of course, as the city administrator said, we never actually came up with any kind of drawings of such. So it was something that was started and wasn't finished. But from what Jared has said, that the Parks Advisory Committee as a whole, when we become more whole perhaps, will be integral part of the compiling the master plan. So I think if the committee is involved, whether it be when we have the meeting with the city or you're here, we'll be sitting there too, making notes and then adding some of the information that we compiled ourselves. I think that sounds good, and it's a way to sort of get it done with his help and get it done faster.
Yeah.
So I think that it sounds like it could be something, though we do have the grant advisory committee, which would help to expand phase 1, 2, and 3, where we have gaps of land, but that could be a part of the strategic plan as well. Because the Doc Cochran property is sitting right in the middle of that phase. And we also need to include TxDOT, because we're going to have to get easements from TxDOT in order to go from one phase of the property to the other, because then you'll be using the easement of TxDOT by the bridge, say, to go from phase 1 over to phase 2. You're going to have to go underneath the bridge to access Owl Hollow. So we need to include them, because we lost our roadway accesses when we purchased the FEMA properties in the 98 buyout. So we need to get TxDOT involved as well. And that's
So
what I
that's
have to
kind of
say.
stuff that you can help, I mean, that Adrian needs to know. So, okay.
That's what I have to say about that.
Well, it's your, I mean, you've been.
No,
on-
no, you're
I'm just
involved
saying,
in the
no,
parks
you're-
too.
Yeah,
Well,
we'll
no,
have to hear-
you've been involved more, so I just want to make sure, get your input and just make sure that the council will be involved with any decision down the road of a final decision on what we do. I have no problem with it.
Yeah. And I
Okay,
think the data gathering will be helpful.
okay.
too.
Lisa, do you have anything to add?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right, if there's no more discussion, we'll go ahead and take a vote. Jan?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Mike?
Bye.
Sonia? Lisa?
Can you restate the motion, please?
It was, I made the motion to assign Adrian Flores, Assistant City Clerk, Utilities, to lead the development of the Parks Master Plan under the guidance and supervision of the city administrator.
Got it. My vote is yes. Thank you.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, we're gonna move on to the next item. The tree removal and/or replacement, or not and/or, I mean, replacement of bids for Allen Bates Park. And I know that you've been out of pocket, but
Hmm.
we just put it on there if
Yeah.
you're not ready to talk about it.
Well,
That's
there's mention of one bid received so far. I don't know who it was from. I have talked to two people to submit bids, because I wanted to get more than one bid for the tree removal. I did have a bid for replacement of the 3 trees, but of course we can't do that until we remove the trees first. So I guess I need to reach out to the other person that we need to submit a bid for to remove those trees. Who did, Sylvia, who did you receive a bid from? Do you remember?
You didn't give it, you did tell me there was one.
I
But you did
I
not give me
received
a
it
copy.
from somebody that was referred to us by Councilmember McLeod.
Yeah, Sean Snipes.
That's it. That sounds familiar. And the bid, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the bid, but it was of limited scope, and I don't think it would meet our needs, and I hadn't entered in discussions with them. And I started to get the feeling that maybe we weren't being as clear in the scope of work that as we needed. Because one of the things that's, I think, important, especially near the playground, is that we grind out the stumps, not just cut them surface. And the bid that I received did not have that. And so I want to make sure that if we want to make progress on this, and I'm okay with going the current procedure and letting the de facto chair of the Parks Advisory Board kind of lead this. But at some point, the Parks Advisory Board almost operates as a quasi Parks Department, even though they are not employees of the city. that works for me because that takes work off my plate. But we've seen a couple occasions when it comes to some micro purchasing issues or larger procurement, like the land survey and other things, when we kind of try to follow the informal process, sometimes it leads to more delays than actually speeding it up. And so at this point, it might be for the council to consider, if you're interested in this removal and replacement bid process, I'm able to provide some additional effort on that and publish an RFP on our webpage with a standard proposal language, put out an announcement in the newspaper. I don't think the value of the contract is going to be all that high where we need to do that, but it's something that we can consider doing if the council wants to. So for discussion.
Okay, but I know we're talking about tree removal now. We have a tree that's down right now in the park, besides these trees that were considered dangerous trees. But then that last Tuesday storm, I mean, it's almost like we need to get Cody down there or somebody to do this emergency removal of this other tree. I may have to go down there and speak to the mayor and let her see this tree, because it's broken the bench. It's just sitting there. It's not in a highly visible, high traffic spot, but that tree has been there for almost two weeks now, and we need to get that tree removed immediately.
If we're just talking about somebody going out there with a chainsaw and hacking it up into firewood, we could use our handyman, our maintenance guy to go and do that pretty quickly, probably by the end of this week.
Cody would do that?
We could use Cody, but I'd probably use our local, Tommy Futch.
Well, this guy's a tree guy, and the guy I know, I'm not trying to push
Well, it's already on the ground, right?
Yeah, it's already.
Aren't there some more to cut down?
It what?
There's some more to cut down?
Oh, it's just laying down.
Oh, it's already
on
fallen,
the
both
ground.
the tree, there's fruit.
The bench is broken and the tree is on the ground, so maybe we can
Oh,
get
if it's-
Tommy to go down
Oh,
there
I
and
didn't know,
buck it
I
up.
thought they were.
Yeah,
still there.
I could probably get that done this.
But that trunk, I mean, if it's a destroyed tree, then the trunk needs to be removed, which should go with the RFQ.
Yes,
So you
that's a
just
good
get
point.
the-
Yes.
And I would like to see adding, at least digging a hole for another tree. It doesn't have to be a full-blown, grown tree.
We could include the replacement, the planting of trees in our bid. And so if we wanted to have a certain maturity of a certain variety, we need a live oak of a maturation of, 10 feet tall, or I don't know. That's
Yeah.
probably a really expensive tree,
Right.
but
Yeah.
you're probably looking at a $500 for something like that. But if you're, we want a couple seedlings, or you want
Right.
we could describe what that requirement is. Yeah. And include that part of the scope of work for someone to come in, remove a tree, grind out the stumps, plant the tree, and then one full firm fixed price, cut the check, we're done, make sure they perform to the standard that's in the contract.
Okay, grind stump, replace tree.
Yeah.
Because the 15-gallon trees that I saw at Paradise Palms, the oak trees were only $129, so that's
15 gallon.
15-gallon pot.
Yeah,
Is
and
it about this big?
I mean, so like within 5 years, it'd be producing shade.
Mhm.
So are we gonna replace a tree right where the stump is?
And they don't all have to be,
Cause that's a lot of work.
We
mean,
may
it's a lot
not
of work. That's a
do
lot
it
of work.
there because it's right on the fence
So
line, but it
well,
did
let's get the
provide
bids.
shade.
Let's get the bids and
Yeah.
include.
I can work with Sam because he's the one who's most knowledgeable about the placement.
Right.
We can put a map with the RFP that we put out. But I want to provide that option to city council to consider whether that's work that you want the Parks Advisory Board to continue to do, if you want me to go in and do it. That's where.
Yeah, when is the next meeting? We don't know. We're not even sure when their terms are up yet, so.
I have one-
So I'm,
I'll
Go
get
ahead,
something to
Lisa.
go. I'll get something together in the next week or two with you.
There you go.
Lisa wanted to say something.
There you go.
I think Lisa wanted to say something.
Lisa, did you have a comment?
Yes, going forward, when we talk about park information in regards to changing anything or specifically the trees, can there be photographs or pictures included so that not only for those of us, for residents who don't necessarily go to the park, so that we know exactly what is being discussed and talked about?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and we can always bring the RFQ to council if you want to review it before it's published. We can do that as well. Or
Yeah.
we don't have to.
Can you
It's,
just email it to us, and if anybody has objections, then we can put it on the next agenda.
If it's a certain dollar amount, does it have to be put on the agenda though?
for the award. So I don't have to get permission necessarily about a request for bids or proposals or quotes. But when it comes time to write the contract, depending on the dollar value that's submitted in response to that, it would have a council vote at that time. And so
Okay.
the council involvement ahead of time is to make sure that, but after I put out the bids and get the quotes and I come to you and say, well, that's not what we want. Well, shoot, I just wasted everybody's time. And so,
So I'm gonna make a motion to accept 7D to allow our city administrator to pursue an RFP and for this to be on next month's agenda with the quotes and photos of replacement trees along with damaged trees needing to be replaced.
Next month or next meeting?
Next meeting,
boo.
or next month. Next month.
That sounds good.
The first meeting in July.
That way we have a little bit of time.
Okay.
People can go drop by.
Uh-huh.
Wouldn't hurt to send those pictures ahead of time so we can.
Okay, I have
Yeah,
a motion.
drive
Do I
by.
have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, is there any more discussion? Okay, if there's no discussion, then we'll go ahead and take a vote.
Everybody
All
say
in
aye.
Everybody
All
say
all in favor.
Aye.
Say all in favor.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay,
Any opposed?
motion carries.
Any opposed?
Is there any opposed? Didn't
We
sound
just want to
like
make sure, I know. You never know when there might be somebody going, say nay.
Okay, we need to set a date for the first workshop for the budget.
Yeah, so on this slide, blue stars are meetings we already have planned or scheduled. And so we're probably looking at some point later in June. The weekend of the 26th is not going to work for me. I'm basically out of pocket between the 23rd to
Yeah, I'm busy that.
28th. So we can do another Monday session. We could do it. We could swap that in and do it Tuesday night of the 15th and have that be. I don't know how ready I will be for that discussion, but I can definitely get input on the 15th. I won't have really a proposal ready, but we can.
For the workshop?
For the budget. So the
That's our city council meeting too, isn't it?
right, and so we could basically repurpose that city council meeting to focus on the
Budget.
budget workshop
Which is,
on the 15th.
Did we have anything on the
Today.
agenda that we'd have to?
that's on the what day?
Not really.
I would like to do that
Yeah, okay, I make
on the 15th.
a motion that we discuss budget items only on the 15th, right? Or make it a mini workshop or something?
Yeah, so it would be a workshop.
Okay.
I just had one thing. We had said that we were going to clarify terms on these boards and bring it to the next city council meeting.
Yeah, we could,
We could do that at the beginning.
It would
We
take
can do
long.
that at the beginning. Okay.
That's fine.
So, well, would we call a city council meeting then and then go into?
We would have
Two
two
separate,
regular
Two
city
agendas.
council, and then a workshop.
Okay.
And it can be, it can be followed, you don't have to set a time or, I don't think so. If we finish, we can just, segue into the next one, I believe.
Exactly.
Can we start it earlier?
How
I don't see
early?
why not. Hey,
I don't
are
know.
you off for the summer?
No, I'm not. I
okay.
work this summer, but I would say like, if y'all started at 4:30 or 5.
That, I'd have a lot of difficulty making
Oh,
that happen, just with childcare arrangements.
Yeah.
Bring the baby.
I brought the baby to Martindale a lot. I think she's going to skip a council workshop though.
So what time do we want to start?
I could probably, 6 would be the best.
Agreed.
I'm good with 6.
Okay, 6 it is.
Okay,
Were we going to have an ordinance workshop as well during that
on
time?
the 7th,
That's during the
the
all day.
Yeah,
whole, all
that's
Monday,
all day.
starting at.
Oh,
10.
that's why the star is there to
Yes.
show. Okay,
That's
so
true.
that's it. Okay, sorry. Ordinance.
What time is that? What time does that meeting start on the 7th? What time?
I remember it was 10 o'clock.
And this
10
was,
o'clock.
this was P and Z, right?
9:30.
Am I right?
9:30,
Jared,
Lisa?
was it 10 o'clock?
Yeah.
Calendar. I'm not
I'm
happy about
sorry,
it.
Lisa, what? Lisa, what were you saying?
I have 9:30 on my calendar, even though I'm not happy about it.
What time? 9:30?
Oh, 9:30?
9:30 a.m. right
The
there.
PM.
For the P
Okay, I
and Z,
remember.
right?
Yeah.
I thought we
Okay.
said 10, but then
Okay.
9:30
You
is
should
okay.
confirm that. You should confirm that.
9:34.
9:30 is perfect.
Okay.
That sounds like, that
9:30
sounds
at
right.
4.
I remember that.
Okay, are we ready for E?
Okay, we're ready
We're
for
ready for
E. Grant Advisory Commission Resolution.
Did we need to make a motion for the budget workshop?
I don't think
No, we
so.
just were looking at, okay.
I don't have a slide for the Grant Advisory Commission resolution. I don't know if Mike or Kent.
Or is
has
that the
an update
next-
on that.
We don't have a slide for it.
Well,
Uh-oh.
we have these, oh, I see. We have paperwork here.
So let's go ahead and read it out loud. Who wants to read it so we can move along?
You want to read it out loud since I wrote it?
Go ahead there, bud.
Whereas the Federal Emergency Management Agency FEMA, or through the Federal Emergency Management Agency FEMA, there exists a flood mitigation assistance program, the program that could greatly benefit Martindale and citizens. And whereas Martindale desires to create a committee to assist in helping its citizens understand the benefits of the program, now therefore be it resolved, the city of Martindale hereby creates the Flood Mitigation Assistance Grant Program Committee, known as the committee. And now therefore be it resolved, the city of Martindale hereby appoints Councilmember Mike McLeod as chairman of the committee. And now therefore be it resolved, the city of Martindale hereby appoints Scott Smith, Richard Solomon, and Doyle Mosier as members of the committee. And now therefore be it resolved, the committee shall meet as Chairman Mike McLeod determines. And now therefore be it resolved, the committee is authorized to disseminate true and accurate information regarding the program to the citizens of Martindale. And now therefore be it resolved, the committee shall, as requested by Martindale, report back to Martindale on work done by the committee. Asked and approved on this first day of June.
Can I add something to it? I'm actually trying to get more people. These 3 guys committed.
Yeah.
So I would like to have more additional people, and we might add people to that. So-
We have in the past limited to a certain number of people on committees, right?
What do you want? How do you want to do it?
How many's on there? We've got, is it
Oh,
6? How many's
I
on there?
think 5.
5?
Well,
Five
you
on
got
each of the other
3,
committees.
how many do you have? You and 3 others?
That's 4, so one more.
One more.
Okay.
Like you said, maybe someone from
I've
1979.
contacted Irma about it.
And one other member is determined by Councilmember McLeod.
Yeah.
We'll set that
Yeah.
language.
Yeah.
If you want me to, I'm flexible. If anybody else wants to add their 2 cents worth. As far as getting, the reason I got these 3 guys, they volunteered.
Okay, now,
And they have grant writer experience.
but this is a resolution.
Yes, it's a
So,
resolution.
and it's okay to name people. can't just, you don't
Well,
want to
he's
say a
just-
certain amount of members.
He would change the
Councilmember
ordinance.
Tubbs confirmed that these people want to serve, so
Yeah,
what I would do is the 1, 2, 3, the third whereas or resolved would be amended to say, now therefore be it further
Martindale
resolved, the
appoints,
city
okay.
of Martindale hereby appoints Scott Smith, Richard Salmon, Doyle Mosier as members of the committee, and one other person as determined by Councilmember McLeod.
Okay, now, again, this is just a temporary committee because.
It's
if
like
we're-
all of the other committees, right?
Okay.
But I,
Uh,
like,
no,
do we
it's-
have
All the- those are
applications?
No,
ordinances.
it's a resolution. It's not,
Oh, it's a
it's a
resolution.
resolution. It's not an actual formal, we'll
Oh,
eventually,
yeah.
we'll eventually have a committee. This is just kind of speed the process up because we're in the buyout grant program is going to end in November. So we're trying to get people together to discuss.
It's a short term.
Sure.
But see, like, with this, it sounds like it's only for the flood mitigation, and I was under the understanding that it was grants for
Right.
other
Anything,
cities.
any kind of
So-
grant.
So the
Explain.
reason
Explain.
that this was drafted is because you're right, there's going to be a more comprehensive ordinance that's drafted to address all potential grants. But
Oh,
because of
okay.
the time-sensitive nature, it is very easy to pass a resolution and limit the scope of what that, what will happen. But doing something to address a broader base of issues and concerns, that'll be taken care of through a series of council meetings and an ordinance that's ultimately.
So they'll work on formalizing the committee along with working on this grant, correct?
Well, no.
Because it says
No, the
desires to
city
create a
council
committee
wants to.
assisting.
No, this is just a resolution to get people organized to start discussing the buyout program. And
Okay.
try to get the ball rolling, because we only got 7 or 8 months left. It's kind of the
Right.
speed. But eventually, like Bud said, we will eventually have a formal committee,
Mhm.
and then people can appoint. This is
Okay,
kind of
okay.
speed the process up.
Okay, okay.
When did you say that program?
Oh, I believe I heard it was in November, but it could be possibly a little longer than that. I'll get an update on that.
How about we put in here the last one so that we can put some bookends on this. The committee shall expire 12/31/2021.
That'll work.
Oh, okay.
So who were the people? Richard, Doyle, Scott Smith,
Scott Smith.
and was there another one?
I've talked
And that-
to Irma about it, but
Oh.
I haven't confirmed her, but I did mention to her about that. What's good about all these guys, they all have grant writer experience, and Scott Smith has experience with the federal level.
So how is the grant writing experience important if it seems like the main focus of this is for buyouts, for the FEMA money that is going on? Like, where does the significance of grant writing come in if this is focusing on the buyouts
Because the buyout's a grant.
that's already in place?
That's buyout the grant, and they can communicate with the grant writer and basically to assist the grant writer. That's all it is. It's a committee to assist the grant writer to try to get the process rolling again. 'Cause this thing's been going on for a year. We're just trying to speed it up.
Possibly 2 years.
Possibly 2 years, probably 2 years.
All right, question, has the city already kind of done some work towards this?
Yes.
And so that you're just getting the additional help?
Yeah, the prior mayor was very much involved with the county and the grant administrator and putting them in contact with properties that he recognized could possibly benefit from this opportunity. Those contacts did not mature into them signing up for the opportunity. There's been more recent flood maps that come out. So there's more properties that might not have been captured previously in those discussions that could be reached out to. And including within our ETJ, there's a significant number of houses and properties that.
So this would be helpful?
Yeah.
In your opinion?
Yeah,
Okay.
and of course, we'll report to the council,
Of course.
our findings or whatever.
All right, so
Right, that'd be
Jared,
great.
I just emailed you an updated copy so it can be printed.
Can you email me
So
that?
printed and signed.
Are you gonna print it right now, Jared?
Yep, let me,
Let me go change the paper.
I can,
Oh, you.
unless we can do it after the meeting. I
Yeah,
could- I
let's do
could-
it after the meeting.
And I'll just display it so that way I have, everybody's
Mm-hmm.
looking at the most recent version.
Would you
I
put
make
it
a
in the box?
motion to accept resolution, 2021-0701, for the city of Martindale FEMA Flood Mitigation Assistance Grant Program Resolution, to accept the members as listed with an ending date of 12/31/2021.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Okay, I hear no more discussion. Everyone who would like to vote for it, please say aye.
Aye.
Lisa? Is she still there?
Lisa,
Okay, she said aye.
you said aye?
Okay,
Okay.
She
Scott
it
carries.
goes in the jungle. I don't know where she
the
went.
motion carries. Okay, we're gonna now talk about the parking ordinance.
All right, so the parking ordinance that we're discussing tonight was passed in 1984. It was not codified. The basic summary of it is that parking, there's kind of two parts to it. There's a ordinance 1104 and then 1104.1-1. Those two ordinances prohibit parking along a portion of Highway 80, basically in front of the Taco Feliz truck, and what's that tire repair store?
Rodriguez.
Rodriguez.
Mhm.
And it also prohibits parking along the entirety of Northwest River Road. And I hadn't read it close enough to see if that included downtown or not. I don't believe it does. I think it's from Lockhart Street to Highway 80 along Northwest River Road, prohibited. So this is an ordinance that was not codified. It was found as we were going through our electronic scanning process. And it applies to a number of the discussions that we've had regarding School Bridge and the rest. This ordinance still exists. From our research, it has not been repealed in any way. It just has not been enforced. And so that the purpose of the discussion is to bring awareness to this, see if there's an intention to change it, if we want to go ahead and codify it in some way, or what we want to do. So,
So all it is Highway 80 and Northwest River Road, nothing, not the rest of the town.
No, it stops at Lockhart Street, but you said Taco Feliz, they could not park in front of the taco truck
They've
anymore?
been here since.
so likely not. So it states that it's unlawful for any person to park a vehicle within 50 feet of the center line of Texas Highway 80 on either side from a point of 1,000 feet west of the center line of Lockhart Street, Texas Highway 142 to Lockhart Street. So basically 1,000 feet, I guess it would be to the west. I might have marked this wrong. It's actually in front of the Bagley and the feed barn. Along that area. It's
Who would want to park there?
1984 must have been a hot spot. So anyways, there's a parking prohibition along Highway 80 at that intersection, near that intersection. I might have marked it wrong on my map, but in my haste. But
It sounds like it would include the parking lot of Shades Restaurant.
It would,
It would.
So
and possibly
I'm
Highway
gonna
81.
recognize Sonia. She's been trying to say something.
So I wanted to say, I know I sent you an email in regards to this,
Mhm.
and it also included what is considered vacant lot parking. I don't see any problem with parking at Taco Feliz or at Shades. If we need to fix that in the books, then we need to fix that. But what I see, like with something that has been on the books, as far as a vacant lot parking, what we have going on at school is a vacant lot parking. Somebody owns that piece of property. That would be like any other lot that would be here, which we don't have anything, I think, in the books or ordinances that includes vacant lot parking. That means if somebody wanted to park a whole bunch of, I don't know, cars in there. I know what I
Possibly.
sent was vacant, it pertains to vacant lot parking.
Well, it could pertain to Carlton back there.
Uh-huh.
That's a vacant lot.
Is it his property though?
It's his
Yeah,
property.
that's his
Well,
property.
but that's somebody's property down there too.
Yes, but Carlton, that's those are his cars. Those are his vehicles. This property owner is allowing people to park there, or there's nobody, that is in charge of what's going on there.
No, I understand what
Uh-huh.
you're saying. I'm
Yeah.
just wondering if it would affect Carlton when he decides to park cars there.
Well, I
Is
I
that
think
something we'd have to address?
it's specified that's in there.
What about Jane Latham offering her place for
Or
people to park by the.
is
post
that a
office
vacant
for-
lot?
For events and whatever.
Well, we're only
It's
talking
vacant,
about
right?
Highway 80 and Northwest
That's
River
it.
Road.
Yes.
That's
We're
what we're
talking-
talking
Oh,
about.
Yes.
Okay.
Discussing that.
It doesn't
Well,
include Carlton's
uh-huh.
property.
If-
It doesn't
You're
include
right.
James.
If
James'
the
property.
homeowner has no problem with those people parking there, then I don't see where the city has a say in.
Well, if it causes a nuisance and crime, we should have a say.
There's no designated parking spots. There's no upkeep on the property. There's no crosswalk. There's kids that are running around. It's a safety hazard. There's nothing in there that's registered within the city that states it's going to be used as a parking lot to access the river.
How are we going to prevent them from parking there?
I mean, I'm
We-
just saying,
When
yeah,
when we prohibited parking there during the COVID restrictions, the prior mayor issued a executive order that prohibited parking near the river so that people weren't congregating at the river. And we must have ticketed, I don't know, hundreds of cars. That's what our police officers did, sun up to sundown on Monday through Sunday.
Don't ask them how many.
Yeah. Don't ask them how many, but it was a lot. I don't know if we towed any of them. Yes, we did tow some. So I'm getting confirmation head nod from the chief police back there. We even towed some. So, we are well able to enforce this ordinance if it's something that we want to do.
Have we contacted the homeowner as a city?
So the ordinance is not
specific.
specific. This ordinance is not specific to a property. It's all of Northwest River Road. So it's from one end to the other, from Lockhart Street to Highway 80.
I wonder what the original intent was. On
The
this-
center line of the Texas highway, where's the one?
On 142, like out on Highway 80, why they wanted to prohibit parking at that point.
Yeah.
Wonder why that ordinance was written.
It could have been businesses being run out of those Bagley buildings and, people parking along the side of the street. It mentioned in the whereases, it talks about obstructing motorist views. And so it might have been people parking along the side instead of the designated parking lot, and people coming out of the parking lot couldn't see down the road. It could have been a number of things, but the whereases, the recitals oftentimes give you a hint of the intent.
And to me, it seems like it had to do with safety, as you were saying, the high traffic flow, because I don't know how many times I've almost gotten hit by cars that are turning out of 12 Run that can't see, that kind of just blow through the stop sign. And right there, with it being two-way traffic, cars parked on the shoulder, and to protect the safety and welfare of its citizens. And I don't know if it's ever been like to where the city could have a conversation with the home, with the property owner.
I think if we're talking specific, that one area on Skull Road, that triangle, I think it would be in the city's interest to see if they would be willing to transfer the deed of that section of land over to the city. And then the city manage it and possibly put parking meters on it,
If I may, Jared, um,
Yeah.
there is basically, I agree with what you just stated. It may not even have to be deeded. It can be considered a designated easement or some type of dedication. I'm not 100% sure of that. But downstream, I believe in the Fentress area, there's actually a parking space similar. They charge $20 a day to park a vehicle there, whether you're there for 3 hours or 8 hours or 10 hours. And it has been my thoughts for years that that's what we need to do. And then if the city maintained it, it would get cleaned up and it would be well lit and potentially a much safer location, as well as we would generate money from it.
How's the money collected?
Yeah, I.
That sounds complicated. Do you have someone
Yeah,
there
no,
collecting
I'm
the
not in
money?
favor of that.
We would likely have a automated teller machine type of thing installed that would work off of 5G, or would have an operator that would operate on, like concession operator who would operate on behalf. They'd have a contract with the city. And so it'd be like a private public partnership. They take a cut, we take a cut. I mean, there's a number of ways that we can look to do it.
All the people that go to the river via Skull Road Bridge are on private property anyway. I mean, we're encouraging people to park there and trespass on private property.
We're not encouraging it. We have no parking signs.
Well, if we charge money to park there. we
Well,
are.
do we charge money if we had ownership or easement or use of that land for that purpose?
But also on the river,
River's not owned by anybody.
Well, I thought they had to access or go through private property in order to get.
There's the bridge right there.
So generally speaking, I think the way that you have to look at this is the city can tell people what to do with their private property. I mean, that's what ordinances are. They're limits or obligations imposed on people. If this is a health, public safety, danger type scenario, and the city sees that this excessive parking of vehicles, if in fact it is excessive, the city then has the right to regulate that and place limits on the use of what is happening. So that's the question that this council has. I mean, and quite frankly, the ordinance is already on the books, although it's kind of funny because it says any person who shall violate the provisions of the ordinance shall be deemed guilty. There flies the presumption of innocence people are entitled to under the law.
You're deemed guilty.
Yeah, I think it's funny. But putting that aside, I mean, if you guys think that this is, on the previous one,
Oh,
if you guys think this is a worthy and noble goal and there's a real problem, then how do you want to address it? You can check.
I think we'd have to see if we can get an easement.
Well, if you're, yes, I mean, the question is, do we want to enforce the ordinance, yes or no? If we only want to enforce it in one area, that's fine. Because I think we provide that direction to our police department, they'll go off and do it, but you gotta be careful that you're not picking a specific person. I don't know, what do you think, Ken?
I think you probably want to clean up, and I think the question is, do we want to clean up and combine these two ordinances and then codify them, or do we want to repeal them? Yeah. And you guys, if you think there's a problem and you want to find a way to address it, let's have that conversation. If you don't,
they're out of date.
let's get them off the books.
So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna talk about like what some people have talked to me. There's people down there with alcohol. There's people that are going and they are drinking. There are people that are meeting there for drug deals. We had 2 people that were murdered there, that were killed there. There is parking that's going on that in our ordinance, they should not be. It's an ordinance that has not been followed. So, in order of safety, do I think it's safe? No. Do I feel like it needs some improvement in the ordinance or we need to? Yes, we do. There needs to be something done.
Before the city does anything, I feel like that the city needs to reach out to this property owner and, first.
And I think we have done that because I remember talking to Chief before at a meeting and it was in regards to cleaning the area. And I don't think that the owner wanted anything to do with that.
Well, I'd like to see that in writing.
And I don't know if he owns it anymore.
He does own it.
Because Mr. Conrad just sold all his property.
It's-
That way.
No, it's under contract.
Under contract, it's not, the sale's not final yet.
Well, no, I was just told he was in the process of
Well,
selling it.
It's under
So,
contract.
He's in the
Is that
process
in
of
there?
selling it, maybe, we need to find out, is it gonna be part of the sale?
Yes, it is.
So then,
It's part of that Lanzola.
And who's gonna say that the people that buy it don't turn it into a for-profit parking area?
Well, they can though.
They
Yeah.
can, yeah.
It's private
then that's up
property.
to them. And then they would make that,
If I may,
go for it.
I would like to suggest that for us to be proactive, specifically since we've been talking about this area for a long time, for someone on the, either from the council or staff, which, I mean, I would even volunteer to do it myself, to get in contact with the owner and or proposed owners and propose this particular notion. As a, the thing, like Sonia said, they could do anything with it if it has been, obviously parking for a long time. And I do believe that it should be taken over by the city, and the only way to potentially find out is to have a conversation. I'd be willing to have that conversation. If anyone so chose to agree.
Sounds like we're gonna have to table this ordinance for now.
Well, it's not,
It's a discussion only.
it's whether or not we want to put it on the agenda.
Well,
Let
you
me-
want to go through the trouble of updating it
Yes.
and revising it to what we'd want, what it need to be, or just.
I just texted Tom Goins, and I remember my recollection, there was some sort of agreement for parking, canoeing there many years ago. I just texted him and asked his history of that parking lot to see.
What about, Spencer's too, probably has some kind of agreement.
No, it was something about access. I remember years ago, so.
It's, if I may, I'm very sorry.
No, go right ahead.
But what you're talking about with Mr. Goins, so not the steep hill, but the hill we all drive up, so we don't have to go up the steep hill. That right there, there is a sign there, and that was the agreement there. That's a loading and unloading, you can pull off to the right, and that was part of the agreement. We
Yeah.
could do that road, but we had to allow the loading and unloading. I remember that coming up, and we put that sign up there.
We closed that road for a while.
It was close for
Yes,
a
ma'am.
while, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
I texted him, he'll clarify the story on, I remember something about that.
so,
It's a complicated issue.
yeah, I say repeal this, that's too
Well,
old.
Well, I think,
Especially on Highway 80.
I think we need to, I think, can I talk? I think we need to probably discuss this. We're not gonna fix this overnight. And, we've thrown some options out there, security light issues, like a security light or something. So I agree with Sonia that it is a problem area and it needs to be addressed.
But see, like, what does that say for us as a city council when we have ordinances that aren't even enforced?
That's
We
the
have
point.
quite a few, don't we?
Sorry, what?
I said we have quite a few, don't we?
Yeah,
Well, we're going through ordinances now.
But,
That's
The
just
thing
something
is,
just
we
gotta
don't like it at the Skull Crossing, but like at purse wells.
And the
You know.
schoolhouse, you know, I mean, they
And,
park,
yeah.
you know, I mean, it's,
There's different areas
There's
where
different
it
areas.
doesn't seem to be a problem. Although at Purse Wells, it kind of is. I think maybe I should talk to Rodney and see if they can't get them.
Where's that?
It's a yellow house right on the river that Mr. and Mrs. Purswell passed away. And so the three sons turned it into a B&B.
Right before
And people
Jack
can-
Bud's store.
Yeah, just right before Jack Mud's store, but it's on the riverside. It's real pretty.
And anybody work there?
No, the people who, well, Mr. and Mrs. Purswell used to park there,
Yeah.
but now it's the people who rent the B&B.
Okay.
And sometimes there's only a couple of cars, but sometimes there's a half a dozen.
well,
So,
actually,
and they're against this ordinance.
And they're-
actually, I break the ordinance. I break the ordinance because sometimes I have people over at my house and they park on the edge of the road.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's something that,
If I may, we're not
Real-
going
Going to,
to be able
Yeah,
to.
that whole road's gonna.
all right, but Lisa.
What do you say, Bill?
go ahead, Lisa.
Thank you. I do not foresee us being able to control and eliminating parking on the streets. What I believe we can do is we can guide how exactly that we will permit that parking to happen. You know, I'm hearing all this notion of we want to welcome you to Martindale. We want you to come listen to the music and enjoy the river, but by golly, don't park on the side of the road. So we got the conflict to me.
That's
Yeah.
true.
That is true.
So I feel like we need to revise, whether it be that we revise these ordinances or that we create a new one that would enable us to have signage that would determine, you know, only park on this side of the street, not on the other side, you know, something. I mean, I don't know exactly to lay all that out, but what I do know is that we've got to make it more user-friendly. if you will.
Welcoming for people to park, yes. Okay.
Was that all, Lisa?
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Roadside maintenance, ordinance, and activities.
All right, so, we passed an ordinance 2019, 2020 regarding roadside maintenance activities. Since then, the initial, and the ordinance was included in your packet. It basically declared that if there's brush or tree limbs within 6 feet of the roadway, that's a public nuisance and it's on the property owner to correct that. The city council at the time that this ordinance was adopted approved the city to go ahead and hire contract for somebody to do the initial abatement of those nuisance conditions. Since then, the city has continued to maintain certain sections of roadways within Martindale at the city's expense. This is mostly mowing activities. This is not really brush clearing or tree limb removal. And mowing activities aren't exactly clear in our existing ordinance. And so I just want to bring this to awareness and discussion, make sure I'm acting on the right interpretation that the city council has when it comes to this ordinance. So we mow around the Shoe Tree S-curve area. We mow near the Skull Road Island, that triangle area. Northwest River Road between Quail Run and the Purse Wells along the side. We mow on occasion, it's been a while. Quail Run between Highway 80 and Northwest River Road. Bacchus Street, which is over here in 1979. The triangle by the stop sign of 1979 in Main Street, where it connects near the Allen Bates Park. And little plots of grass that sprout up along Gonzalez and near the Frontier Communications parking lot. And so if we don't always do all those activities, but in total, those costs have been negotiated at about $775 if we were going to mow all those sections. And so and the Shoe Tree S Curve, Skull Road, Northwest Road, those have been happening fairly frequently
Because of the rain.
because of the rain and things. And so it's the money is coming out of our property maintenance fund. And it's budgeted, but the question is, given the ordinance, should we continue to do it? So the ordinance,
Property maintenance, not roadside maintenance.
roadside maintenance, I'm sorry. Roadside maintenance. There's other mowing activities that comes out of property. The Fannin Street properties and some of the Hobson Ranch comes out of our property. I'm sorry, roadside maintenance. Thanks for that correction. So the prohibited conditions in the ordinance says it's unlawful for an owner or occupant of a lot to cause or permit tree limbs or brush to extend within 6 feet of the edge of city streets and roads. If the distance between the road and any man-made structure is less than 6 feet, the limit will be to the man-made structure, basically a fence. Limits to the fence. And extend into areas less than 14 feet above the road and the easement boundary described above. It basically creates a box and nothing enters. So the question is, we put it on the property owner to maintain their tree limbs and brush. It doesn't talk about grass, which can grow quite high. I consider grass to be different than brush, but on this concept of roadside maintenance, should we be continuing to mow that property, or should that be the responsibility of the owners, the landowners or occupants? And if so, depending on that determination, we may want to clarify.
It's an easement. Now, if you look where they have sidewalks, actually, I think that's the easement on the roadside of that sidewalk, but it's all grass. And I think the homeowners actually mow those.
Some do.
Yeah.
In some cases, the city mows it for them.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we should be,
Well,
frankly.
across the street from
This
my
is
house,
an
that's the
easement.
Harrison's Ranch, and they've never mowed it on there.
Right, the question
The
is, should
city
they?
has been.
Is that what we should be doing?
Especially.
I mean, why would you mow in front of the Harrisons but not Mike's?
Mike has a lot of cars.
I think it's done all along the roadway.
Only got 2 cars there.
I don't have to confirm. Maybe they do mow in front of Mike's
It's
yard, but
like all
why would
around
you
the
mow
curve.
in front of somebody's house on Northwest Road, but not in front of somebody's house on Crockett Street? And so,
I guess if
Where
they're
you're allowed to
easements,
park.
is that one of the expenses of the city?
everywhere that I've lived, up until you hit the roadway, if you got grass growing, it's your job to mow it.
So public utility easement exists solely for the purpose of saying, water company, electric company, cable company, here's 15, 20 feet, you can stick whatever you want in there. And owner, if you build on top of that easement, you do so at your peril because they can come in and rip it out to maintain those public utilities. That is the purpose of the easement. I guess under a very liberal interpretation, the city could say, well, we are a public utility service provider and
We're
we
allowed
can,
to park there.
yeah, well, I think that would be overburdening the estate and doing more than the estate envisions. But I suppose the city says, well, we keep this thing mowed. It certainly makes it easier to access it. There's nothing to stop you from doing it, but it certainly is not part and parcel of having a public utility easement, which is simply accessing that property for the purposes of ensuring public utilities are provided.
So we're not really talking about parking.
So let's brass tacks. If we have I forget the roadside, the street and road maintenance funding levels, I think it's like $40,000. If we spend 5,000 of it mowing grass, we're not spending 5,000 on fixing potholes. So, I mean, that's kind of where this eventually leads to.
Approximately how many, I guess it depends on the year, what the year, how many times they mow it?
I would have to I have the data available. It would take me a couple minutes to look it up.
We'd have to do a public campaign to tell people it's their job, because we're used to y'all mowing it now.
Well, if it's a visual problem, like at a stop sign or whatever, then I can, if it's not mowed, I think the city ought to mow it. And if it's questionable, if it's not somebody's property, then it's an easement for the, not necessarily the city, maybe a utility easement is what you're saying.
And then if it's not mowed, then the city will have to, start fining people for, putting out notices, you have X amount of days to mow your lot. If we mow it, then this charge is incurred, that's gonna
Yeah.
add more.
We've mowed it 4 times this fiscal year.
It's 750
It's less than 750. It'd probably be more on the range about $400 to $500 on the average. But probably about $2,000, give or take, in mowing so far this fiscal year.
So what do you got any suggestions?
I don't really care one way or another. I just want to make sure that y'all understand that when we have a street and road budget, it's not all going to potholes. Some of it's going to mowing, and we're mowing that neighbor, but not this neighbor, and that we're all okay with that.
Yeah.
I think that the S curve, the line of sight issues that exist there make sense for the grass to be low.
Stop signs.
The stop signs at 1979 and things, that makes sense. But there are legitimate property owners that should be maintaining that,
Yeah.
but might have it. So,
So you're saying if it's for a safety issue, we should mow it like around stop signs?
right, but should we bear that expense? Or should we transfer that expense to the property owner for having not maintained it? And so this is where the clarification on
Why didn't we
the
start mowing
maintenance.
it in the first place? We just always have, so that's not really an answer.
Yeah, I'm not
That's
sure
not a
when it started, but it's been happening.
And what started?
When we started mowing those sections of road.
I think we need to do a public information campaign to let people
Well,
know about
We
this.
did about the tree limbs and such. Heck, there's probably some tree limbs if you drive around town that probably need to be taken care of right now with all the rain and wind we've had. Question, but if we follow the nuisance ordinance, if the city's, unless there's an emergent need to doing it right away, there's a notification process, and then we do it and go through a court process to get a lien on it and everything else. So, yeah, Lisa?
Yes, Lisa?
Thank you, to shed a little bit of light. Some of this road maintenance, if you will, or on the sides of the road, was done as a courtesy in years back, specifically for the 4th of July parade. The areas involved the parade route, and that was done as a courtesy. That's just FYI. The other part that I'm hearing is that the nuisance ordinance that we do have on our books, what I'm hearing is that, again, we're not enforcing ordinances that have been established.
It's the definition of brush. It's defined in the ordinance as all trees and shrubs under 7 feet in height that are not cultivated, regulated, or maintained because their condition constitute a breeding place or harborage for mosquitoes or vermin. That it'd be hard to classify tall grass as shrubs in that definition. So
I agree with that, but we also don't we also have something that if the grass in your yard reaches a certain height, that you can be
Yes, we
given
do.
notice? And
yes, we do.
if you don't do it, then we'll mow it and bill you?
Yes, we do.
I think we need to enforce.
What was that last part?
I feel like we need to enforce. We have to educate in order to enforce.
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree.
If anyone drove around specifically in Martindale proper over this last weekend when it was going to rain, I believe it was on maybe Saturday or Sunday, almost every single yard was mowed in Martindale proper. And I want to tell you, for the first time, I just almost took my breath with pride, because looks so nice. And, everybody's motivated by the rain and being able to do it. But people have to be educated. And again, welcome to Martindale. You're going to get bitten by mosquitoes and bitten by rats, and don't park on the side of the road. We've got to stay within our vision and within our what we want to see for the city.
That's a good point. Okay.
Okay.
Are we done with that discussion?
I don't know if I got any clarity on it, but at least you know what we're doing. I guess I'll continue the continuing practice unless there's any.
So what I
Different
thought, what I
direction.
heard is that start enforcing.
Start enforcing
It
and
will,
educate.
I guess we could enforce it wouldn't be in the roadside maintenance ordinance. It would have to be other sections of the nuisance regarding weeds and the rest.
Yeah, if there are areas that are specifically what you just described, I say continue to maintain it for public safety reasons, but send a letter to the property owner and citing the nuisance ordinance and the penalties for not following.
So in other words, you'll be fined if we continue to mow.
Yeah, continue
Is that what you're saying?
and,
Yes.
and let the property owners know we have been mowing your property for all this time. However, we'll gladly continue to mow it. It's going to cost X amount of dollars a month for you to pay, or you can start mowing it yourself.
They can hire Tommy themselves.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think
I'm
some
all
people are
for
just
that.
unaware.
Yes.
I really
Right.
do.
I'm sure they are too.
The shoe tree, Susan Smith used to come down and clean that up.
Now, whose property is that?
Well, it's on the Cody G property
Oh,
in
the
that
guy
corner.
that does the
Tree
tree
limbs.
trimming. Okay.
He's never cleaned that up. He's a renter.
Oh,
So the way that we would address that would be either to adopt the definition of weeds into chapter 91.21.
why do we have to do that?
I say just
Or
follow the
I
property
would
already.
apply 91.15 regarding weeds, brush and the like regarding the lot. And so I'm not sure if we want to get crossways when we're talking lots versus some of those. If you look on Kiowa County CAD, you're gonna have lot lines. And then if we're saying, you can't have weed and brush on your lot, and they say, well, my lot line is here on CAD. What's there is not on my lot. Then we may have an enforcement hole where that area between the lot line and the road is not clearly defined regarding the issue of weeds.
Okay.
Well,
I
how
don't
wide
think-
is the easement
But
on
when they go-
103 on Northwest Road from the center of the road? I mean, doesn't the county maintain a certain part of an easement or just
That's-
where the
that's
road
city-
is? That's
city
it?
line, that's city, it's a city road.
Jared, if you will, let me and this next week and create a pencil lines where these areas are that are of concern, so that we can create a visual to look to in the future. I will gladly dig into this. I don't think we need to deal with any ordinance stuff and make any kind of changes. I think we need to enforce what is on the books. And guys, this is where the rubber hits the road, and this is where being a public servant is not always fun. When you have to, as I like to say, educate and hold your neighbors accountable. And we ought not be able to pick and choose.
Would city council be open to revisiting this ordinance to include the term weeds in the description of prohibited conditions unlawful for an owner occupant of a land to cause or permit tree limbs, brush, or weeds?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, then I think that would solve it.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll have to discuss it at the next meeting.
Yeah, we'll review that ordinance change, but
We'll put it on future agenda.
Okay, let's skip over 9 for just a minute and look at future items. Is there anything else to add to that? I put on light at school area when we were talking earlier.
Yeah, I did too. So,
it's on the agenda, the future agenda items already.
Yeah, you're right. It is.
oh, it was.
So is there anything else to add? Number 2. This is number 2. Review of the
Skull
Skull
Road
Bridge
parking or
parking
lighting.
area.
But we were talking about lighting there.
Yeah,
Well, accusation, get an easement. I mean, we can't have lighting there until we get an easement from the owner.
yeah.
And we will talk about the dilapidated house
No.
ordinance.
The point that I was making, Sam, is
Mm.
that qualifies as a utility. Lighting qualifies as utility.
Okay.
And there's an existing
Oh,
public
there.
utility.
So
Infrastructure there
we
already.
still pay
Yeah.
for a light. there.
So, yeah, so what I'm saying is, I think that we could probably just do an ordinance.
Put a light there.
We'd have to get permission
But-
from the other service provider
Yeah.
to glom on to that.
Right.
Blue bonnet.
Service provider.
Yeah, whoever put the pole.
Blue bonnet.
Yeah,
Blue
blue bond.
Oh,
Blue bonnet.
Yeah, but that would probably be a pretty easy fix.
Yeah.
Say, hey, blue bond, we've got an issue here. You mind if we put a light up and,
We'll pay for it.
yeah.
and we'll pay for it, and we will, and the property owner isn't gonna be paying the electricity.
No, we'll pay the electric.
Third hotel.
It's $11 to $13 a month for the street light, but then we
Free item.
would have to put it on the agenda since it's $1,200 for the
Yes.
transformer.
Or whatever cost Blue Bond comes back with and says,
They've-
yeah,
They've told me it's
So
$1,200.
remember that we do have a dark sky resolution, so it can't be lit up like a football field. Whatever light's gonna be there, it's gonna have to be
Facing down.
directed down.
Well, you know, the
I
one by
asked
the
them
water
about that.
company is really, it's
But
like a,
the lights in the dark sky just mean that they have to be aimed down, not up.
That's what I said.
And,
I
and
would
type
like to
of lighting.
see him, see it have a cone around it too.
Yeah.
They have those on those
Okay.
streetlights.
Okay,
Got it.
if there's no other discussion, it's 9:30. We'll take a 10-minute break and then reconvene in
I say 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Let's do it in 5.
Lisa, can you get here in 5 minutes?
Oh, she's gonna
Well, give
come
me
over.
a moment to go to the ladies' room.
I couldn't hear what she said.
I don't know. What'd you say, Lisa? You'll be here in 10 minutes?
Okay, break.
Great.
That magnolia tree behind it.
Did we vote on this recess?
I don't know how she does that.
Do we need to?
It's like a green screen or something.
Well, are you
Yeah, that's an option.
It's an option on Zoom.
Yeah, we're going to go into
So
executive
what
session.
time is it right now?
9:30 on the dot.
Okay.